American Comics, The Void Walker. Chapter 1. Tavern. 1962. Tavern. The wine glass fell on the bar with a dull thud. This stuff tastes terrible. It tastes like bitter almonds. Muen frowned and looked at the whiskey in the glass. No matter how many times he drank it, he could never get used to it. That's because you don't know how to drink. This is good wine. Seeing Moon's frowning brows, Logan smiled and continued to roast his cigar. Tisk, only guys like you like to drink this. Muen shrugged. He and Logan have known each other for 3 years. When he first came to this world 3 years ago, he was rescued by Logan. Over the years, he has been traveling around the world with Logan, watching the people around him fall on the battlefield one after another, looking like wild dogs of war. Fortunately, both of them are very special and have powerful strength far beyond ordinary people, allowing them to survive the war safely. 2 young men came over, and one of them, who looked stronger, introduced himself. Excuse me, my name is Eric Lesher. My name is Charles Xavier. Another young man who looked very knowledgeable also said. But Logan had no interest in their self-introductions. He thought they were just hooligans looking for trouble. He took a puff of his newly lit cigar and cursed. Get the fuck out of here. After hearing what Logan said, the 2 of them didn't want to get into trouble and turned around to leave. Wait. Muen stopped the 2 of them, then looked at Logan. Let them talk, I think they are quite interesting. Muen's ambiguous words aroused Logan's curiosity. He knew what Muen meant by interesting. Do you have business with us, or do you want to fight us? Having said that, he turned around and looked at the 2 of them. Although he didn't know who these 2 guys were, the fact that Muen found them interesting meant that these 2 guys were the same kind as them. Muen was leaning on the bar, looking at the 2 young men in front of him with a smile. He noticed the unusualness of these 2 guys when they approached, and after hearing their self-introductions, he immediately understood who these 2 guys were. Tell me, what do you want from us? Looking at the smiling Muen, Charles's expression became solemn. Eric, I can't sense him. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. The other person was clearly right in front of him, but he couldn't sense him with his psychic ability. It was as if the other person didn't exist at all. Eric, who was standing by, was also shocked by Charles's words. He knew how powerful Charles was. They were able to find this place because of Charles's ability. But now, Charles couldn't sense the other party, which made him feel incredible. It seems like you have something important to discuss. Let's go over there and talk. Pointing to a quieter spot in the corner of the tavern, Moon and Logan led the 2 men over. As soon as he sat down, Eric said, we need help, and you might be able to help us. As he spoke, he also controlled the metal pendant on Muen's chest, causing it to slowly float up. Seeing his pendant floating, Muen raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to press the floating pendant. Nice trick, but it's not suitable to show it here. Muen meant something and cut off the magnetic force that controlled the pendant. After discovering that he couldn't control Muen's pendant, Eric finally understood Charles's feelings. They were not much stronger than ordinary people in front of Muen. Now let's talk about the commission. The price we offer is not cheap. Although he knew who the 2 people in front of him were, this did not affect Muen's ability to make money. It was impossible to get them to help with just a few words. Seeing that Moon and Logan only cared about money, Charles and the others looked at each other and said, if they only cared about money, then it would be very easy. Those people in the CIA would be willing to pay the money. So, how much does it cost to hire you? Charles asked. That depends on what you need us to do. If it's a bodyguard, it's 50,000. If we are to enter the battlefield, then we will have 100,000 troops. If we are to fight against our own kind, then it depends on the situation. The price Muen quoted was not cheap, but as long as the 2 could meet their expectations, the money would not be a problem at all. Okay, at least 500,000 each. We are going to fight against a powerful fellow of our kind, who is planning a war that threatens the world. 500,000, this is not the era in the future where you spend hundreds of millions just to get something for nothing. 500,000 is a very generous reward. Muen and Logan looked at each other and accepted the offer. I hope we can cooperate happily. He smiled and shook hands with the 2 men. The price of 500,000 was indeed enough to impress him. Now that the cooperation had been agreed upon, several people stood up and left. Moon and Logan need to prepare some things, and as for Charles and Eric, they need to go to the location of the next target. After saying goodbye, Charles looked at Muen's back with a serious expression. I can't see through him, he's not even in my perception. This guy's ability is very special. Maybe it will come in handy when fighting Xiao. Eric's feeling was no worse than Charles's. He clearly felt that Muen had cut off his control over the pendant. The opponent's ability is very special. Although it may not play any role on the battlefield, it can cut off mutant abilities, which means that he will be the nemesis of many mutant abilities. In addition, the opponent is a battle-hardened mercenary, so there is a high probability that he can deal with Xiao. As for Muen, he and Logan were already fully armed, with all kinds of equipment in place, ready to go into battle at any time. Not long after, Charles and his men arrived. She was a capable woman. After seeing Muen and Logan dressed as soldiers, she was confused but still introduced herself. Gentlemen, my name is Moira. According to Charles's report, the two of you will temporarily become members of the CIA. Hello Ms. Moira, my name is Muen, and his name is Logan. We are just hired and are not interested in the CIA. Seeing Muen say this, Moira nodded slightly. It didn't matter what the abilities of these two guys were. What mattered was that they looked much stronger than the guys recruited before. Logan, who was standing next to him, was looking at Moira with a cigar in his mouth. It was obvious that she was his type. Hey, Logan, stop looking, those guys from the CIA are not that easy to deal with. He nudged Logan with his elbow to wake up the guy who was about to stick his eyes to the other's chest. Logan came back to his senses, took a deep puff of his cigar, put on sunglasses and got into Moira's car. Although Moira is his cup of tea, he also knows how powerful the CIA is, and he doesn't want to deal with these agents. Chapter 2. Codename. A few days later. Charles and his team have gathered quite a few people, each of whom possesses unique abilities. Because it was their first gathering, they were all very interested in other people's abilities. After all, this was the first time they had met so many people with special abilities in all these years. They sat in the middle of the room, looking at the people around them with curiosity. We have to come up with a code name. After all, we are government agents now. We must have a code name. I want to be called the demonic shape. Blonde Raven spoke suddenly, and it was obvious that she had been looking forward to this for a long time. But just as he finished speaking, a young man who looked like a hippie on the other side said, Really? I want to be called Demon Shape too. But Riven did not give him the chance to fight for the code name. She raised her eyebrows and turned into the other person's appearance. Haha, sorry Sean, this code name is mine. Everyone was shocked when they saw the changes in Riven. Riven now looked like Sean's biological brother. They looked exactly the same. Her transformation drew cheers from the crowd, as it was the first time they had seen the ability to transform into anyone. Watching Raven's performance, Moon bumped his shoulder against Logan, who was smoking a cigar next to him. This girl is pretty good, haha. Hearing Muen's words, Logan rolled his eyes helplessly. Although the other party had good abilities, he was still unable to arouse his interest. Then another guy started performing. This guy was an African American named Darwin. When he was asked what code name he would choose, Darwin smiled and shrugged and explained, Actually, my name is Aman. Darwin is just a nickname. It means survival of the fittest. After saying that, he walked to the fish tank in the room and buried his head in it. The moment his head entered the water, things like fish gills appeared by his ears, vividly demonstrating to everyone his ability to adapt to any environment and even anything. Great ability. Muen whistled. This guy's ability was simply amazing. Just like what Darwin said, only the fittest survive. Maybe his fighting ability was not very strong, but his survival ability was simply perfect. Thank you for the compliment, but what are your abilities? Darwin asked curiously. He was not the only one who was curious, everyone was very curious. After all, both Moon and Logan were dressed like soldiers, and there was nothing special about them. Seeing everyone so curious, Muen laughed, and the next moment he completely disappeared from everyone's sight. Just when everyone was curious about where Muen was, Riven suddenly let out a scream. Oh, you're behind me. She could feel a hand on her shoulder. Muen also appeared at the right time, causing everyone to exclaim in surprise. Try to use your abilities. After hearing Muen's words, Riven immediately wanted to become Muen's appearance, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't change her form, as if she had lost the ability to transform. "Why don't you transform?" A guy named Alex next to him asked curiously. He kept staring at Riven but did not wait for any changes to happen to her. My ability is ineffective." Raven looked at Moon in disbelief. She didn't expect her mutant ability to disappear just like that. The others were even more shocked. It was the first time they encountered such a situation. Muen could actually erase their abilities. Looking at everyone's shocked expressions, Muen raised his hand that was placed on Riven's shoulder. "Try it again this time." After hearing Muen's words, Riven tried again. This time she didn't feel any obstruction and in the blink of an eye she turned into Muen's appearance. "My ability is quite special. In addition to invisibility, I can also suppress any ability." The same is true for Riven. Her ability was suppressed by me. Muen did not fully explain his abilities, he only talked about a few characteristics of the power of the void. But such a characteristic was enough to shock everyone. They all had an incredible expression, and even a Latin American woman walked forward. "Can you try it on me? I want to know what it feels like." Muen did not refuse this request. He also wanted to see if the other party could be like in the movies with his ability. He raised his hand and pressed it on the opponent's shoulder, and the power of the void instantly spread throughout his body. Although she was prepared, she was still shocked when she felt it carefully. Her code name is Angel, which means angel and represents free flying. Her ability is also related to flying. The tattoo on her shoulder is not a simple tattoo, but her wings, transparent wings like a dragonfly. In the past, she could turn her tattoo back into wings and fly freely in the air. But now, she was unable to use her own abilities. Her wings were like real tattoos, with no changes at all. After confirming Muen's ability, everyone's attention turned to Logan, who was silently smoking a cigar. Since they met Logan, they have never heard this guy say a few words, and the look in his eyes always gives them the feeling that he is looking at a junior. "Logan, what are your abilities?" Under everyone's expectant gaze, Logan put down his cigar and blew out a smoke ring. At the same time, he clenched his right hand, and 3 pale bone claws grew out from his fist. The whole room was silent for a moment, and then there was an exclamation. "Cool!" They were amazed at Logan's abilities. Even though they were just bone claws, who among these young people hadn't thought about what a werewolf looked like? Although he was not a werewolf, his white bone claws did fit their imagination of werewolves, and Logan's temperament was very similar to the werewolves they imagined, both with a fierce and wild aura. "Who's next?" "Oh! Alex, what's your ability?" Everyone looked at Alex. What kind of abilities did this guy who didn't seem to have very high EQ have? But Alex seemed very reserved and had no intention of showing off his abilities. "Forget it, my ability is too dangerous." Seeing Alex's embarrassed look, everyone became even more curious. They wanted to know what this guy's abilities were, so they started shouting his name and making a fuss. "Alex! Alex! Alex!" Amid the noise of the crowd, Alex was also infected and finally made up his mind to show everyone his abilities. A man walked out of the room and came to the lawn where there was no one else. "You all hide well, you come out when I tell you to." After saying that, he began to prepare to use his ability. He shook his body and red arcs of light surrounded him. Those arcs of light became larger and more obvious, and finally, at the moment when the brightness of the arcs reached its peak, they flew out from his body and attacked the statue not far away. With a burst of fire, the statue was cut into 2 pieces by the arc of light and fell to the ground. Chapter 3. Looking forward to the future. Such destructive power made everyone exclaim in surprise, and then everyone understood why this guy was not good at communicating with others. His abilities are too destructive, and he obviously has no control over his abilities, which is very dangerous for other people. He comes into contact with few people and naturally isn't very good at communicating with them. The moment the red arc of light attack was released, it not only destroyed the statue but also damaged a large area of lawn and the windows of their room. "Not bad ability." Muen commented softly, and Logan nodded continuously. Such ability is indeed powerful. If before in his eyes these people were just a mob, then now Alex's ability gave him a surprise. If he can control his abilities, this mission should be easy. Although I don't know much about the enemy, given this guy's destructive power, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with that so-called Xiao. Thinking of this, Logan couldn't help but relax. He was very happy to be able to earn a lot of commissions easily. However, Muen knew clearly what kind of power the enemies they were about to face possessed. That's a mutant who can absorb nuclear energy and release it. Although Alex's ability is good, he can't threaten that guy. What's more, that guy has an assistant who can teleport. Even if he can't block this kind of attack, it is very easy for him to dodge it. However, Moon was not worried about the failure of the mission. It was not like he and Logan had seen other mutants on the battlefield before. And in the end, didn't they manage to take care of those guys with their cooperation? Although Xiao's ability is powerful, the two of them also have their own ways of dealing with their own kind. While the two were talking, Sean, who wanted to compete with Riven for the magic form, also began to demonstrate his abilities. The guy opened his mouth slightly and made a whistle shape. A sharp sound came out of his mouth, destroying the statue that was split in two again. Although the attack method of this ability is simple, its destructive power is not weak. Just a short and sharp sound is enough to destroy the statue. After demonstrating his abilities, Sean raised his hands and announced loudly. I've decided. My code name is Siren. The siren that brings the sound of death to the enemy. After this, the rest of the group continued to demonstrate, and everyone's abilities opened their eyes, and they even gave Charles and Eric code names after deciding on their respective code names. I suggest that Charles be called Professor X, and Eric be called Magneto. Riven raised her hand to propose to the group, which made everyone nod their heads as they chimed in with agreement. All code names have been confirmed and agreed upon by everyone. Mystique Raven, Siren Sean, Darwin Amon, Alex the Destroyer, Angel Salvador, Hank the Beast, Moon the Voidwalker, Werewolf Logan, as well as Professor X Charles and Magneto Eric. This is the code name they gave to themselves and even their companions. Everyone is very excited and looks forward to their future happily. Why don't we celebrate? For our X-Agent team. Riven's proposal drew unanimous agreement from everyone, and everyone raised their glasses. Although your team has nothing to do with the two of us, we don't mind drinking, but let me give you a tip, this is the CIA, and those agents have bad tempers. After saying that, Muen picked up the wine glass and went out of the room with Logan. What do you think of them? Them? You're not much better than you were 3 years ago. Logan raised his head and drank the whiskey in the glass in one gulp. Muen sat on the bench, looking at the night sky with a smile. Indeed, they are too optimistic. This will cause them great losses. But what does this have to do with us? After completing this mission, I plan to buy a farm in Kansas. I can't always be a wild dog of war. What about you? Muen wants to settle down. He has been traveling around the world for 3 years and now doesn't want to continue living this kind of life. Me? I don't know. Logan replied, holding a cigar in his mouth. I have lived like this for a long time. If I had to settle down somewhere, I would probably be a lumberjack in California. Well, we have the same interests, so let's treat this as our last battle before retirement. As we were chatting, an angry shout came from behind us. What are you doing? And who destroyed this statue? Haha, there's something exciting to watch. After nodding to Logan, Moon turned around and looked at Moira and the other three. They had gone to a meeting before. Although I didn't know the content of their meeting, I could understand with a little thought that the meeting was definitely related to Xiao. But judging from their expressions, the content of this meeting was not very good, and there may be other reasons. However, Riven and the others who were having a great time didn't understand why and just looked at them with smiles on their faces. Alex and Sean did it. Hank replied in a low voice. No. Raven stepped forward and introduced, it's the Ravager and the Siren. We gave ourselves code names, and you also helped to choose your code names. Charles is Professor X, and Eric is Magneto. As she spoke, Raven also noticed something was wrong. It was the first time she saw Charles with such an expression. You disappoint me so much. Charles said to them, then turned around and was about to leave. They originally wanted everyone to carry out their first mission, but now, everyone's performance is not at the level that an agent should have. The rookies got scolded. Ha ha ha. Seeing their performance, Muen couldn't help but laugh. His laughter made Moira and others look over, but Muen showed no fear and looked at them without changing his expression. Don't look at me like that, ma'am. We are mercenaries, not your subordinates. We just need to complete the mission. As for what we want to do, it has nothing to do with you. Muen's words made Moira lose her idea. She knew that what he said was correct. They were hired mercenaries and the relationship between them was just an employment relationship. She couldn't preach to these two people. Thinking of this, Moira left here in a sullen mood, but Charles opened his mouth to say something. Professor, in such a large secret service organization, has no one ever told you that your subordinates are all rookies who have never received any training? You can't expect too much from them without training, they are just doing what young people do. Muen's words made Charles and Eric realize the problem, and they nodded slightly to Muen. Sorry, I was wrong just now. Charles realized that it was his mistake and immediately apologized to everyone, while Raven and the others also waved their hands, realizing their mistakes. After sending Charles and Eric away, Raven and the others came to Moon and Logan. You're right, we're all rookies, so could you please help us with the training? Ha, of course. Muen raised his eyebrows. Anyway, they have already paid the money. Chapter 4. Training. It's just training a group of rookies. For Muen, who has nothing to do now, it's just a leisure activity for himself. Since everyone wants to receive training, then I won't be polite. I hope you can hold on until the end of the training. Although Muen had a smile on his face, everyone felt a chill. Why does it feel like we're headed toward hell? Hank muttered softly. He felt that they would never be able to live so easily in the future. Nothing in the night. The next day, while everyone was still asleep, Muen walked into their bedroom carrying a bucket of ice water. What? Accompanied by the crowd's howls of fear, Muen walked out laughing. You are still so evil. Logan, who was smoking a cigar on the balcony, glanced at Moon and made a pertinent comment on him. Muen was still smiling happily, without any sign of apology. This is the first lesson we teach them. Even if they are in a safe zone, they must not let their guard down. Sitting on the balcony, Muen looked at the rooms that were still screaming and shouted. Gentlemen and ladies, today is the first day of your training, so are you ready? Not long after the words fell, everyone came to the lawn outside, and everyone looked at Muen who was sitting on the balcony with an angry look on their faces. You're going too far, that's a bucket of ice water. Of course I know it's ice water. Do you still want me to pour boiling water on it? As he spoke, he raised his eyebrows at everyone and gave a malicious smile. Looking at that evil smirk, everyone was helpless. After all, they were the ones who asked Muen to guide their training. Just as everyone was getting ready for training, Charles and Eric suddenly ran over. Sorry everyone, we received a clue from Xiao and have to rush over immediately. Charles? Are you sure you want them to go now? Muen raised his eyebrows and looked at Charles. Why don't we split into 2 teams? Logan will act with you, and I will train them first. If you need support, we will act later. For these guys who can't even use their abilities flexibly, if they are asked to carry out the mission now, it would be good enough if they don't make things worse. Muen's suggestion made Charles fall into deep thought. He originally wanted to take everyone on a mission and find out their shortcomings during the mission, but after hearing Muen's suggestion, he gave up this idea. This mission is very important, they must catch Xiao and stop his actions. Okay, then the 3 of us will go first, and you guys pay attention to our messages while you train. After that, he turned and left. Logan shrugged helplessly. He was sold out so easily. But it was boring here anyway, so he might as well go out and relax. After seeing them off, Muen looked at Riven and the others again. Now that no one is bothering us, are you ready for training? Seeing Muen's smile, everyone couldn't help but shudder, but no one gave up. They didn't want to be stared at like monkeys anymore. Very good, since everyone has no objection, let's begin the training. As mutants, everyone has very good physical fitness, so everyone should explore the basic training to enhance their physical fitness on their own, and the training I want to give you will mainly focus on combat skills and the control of your abilities. After saying that, Muen dragged out a few large baskets and looked at everyone. I think everyone should have played baseball, and this training is similar to baseball rules. Hank, as the pitcher, you must use all your strength to throw the baseball to Sean. Sean, you are the batter, and after Hank throws the ball, you need to use your voice to shoot the baseball to Darwin. Angie, you have to shoot down the baseball when it is shot at Darwin and shoot acid bombs at Darwin. Darwin, you need to adapt to different attacks and take out a new baseball from the basket and throw it in any direction. Hank has to catch the baseball before it hits the ground and throw it again to Sean. After saying that, Muen looked at the remaining Riven and Alex. As for the 2 of you, Riven, you must constantly transform to disrupt them while they are taking action, and use the skeet launcher to shoot the skeet, and Alex. Mu-En took out a pair of gloves with a lot of lines on them from his pocket and threw them to the other party. This glove can help you control your abilities. All you have to do is use the glove to release your abilities and attack those flying targets fired by Ruin. This glove was made by Mu-En last night using an electromagnetic force field device. It is a piece of equipment that controls energy output. It can be considered a special equipment tailor-made for Alex. Wearing gloves, Alex went to a faraway place to experiment. This experiment surprised him greatly. He did not expect that he could control his abilities so easily. That's right, his ability is no longer uncontrollable like before, and now he can release it from both hands very easily. I can control it. I can control my abilities. Alex looked at Mu-En in surprise. This was the first time he controlled his own abilities. He no longer had to worry about threatening the safety of others. Since you can control it, your training will begin. Here's a tip for you guys, be alert to the situation around you. After saying that, he waved his hand and went back into the room, leaving everyone looking at each other in bewilderment. Soon they began training. At the beginning, their coordination was not very good. Hank, who had super strength, threw the baseball with not only great power but also amazing speed. Sean tried many times to shoot the high-speed baseball at Darwin, but failed. But as time went by, they all found patterns and could predict the movement of baseball. Gradually, everyone started to move. Hank jumped up and down chasing the baseball thrown by Darwin. Sean used his voice very skillfully and could change the flight trajectory of the baseball through sound waves of different frequencies. Angel's flying speed and the accuracy of her acid bombs were greatly improved, and Darwin quickly transformed himself to adapt to various attacks. Riven was running around, shooting targets randomly and transforming to disrupt everyone's vision. As for Alex, this guy had already made a lot of use of energy shocks. Energy shocks of different sizes and intensities were released by him, quickly destroying the flying targets. While they were training, an automatic rifle was pointed at them. Now increase the difficulty. As soon as he finished speaking, flames came out of the muzzle of the gun. Da-da-da! The sound of gunfire rang in everyone's ears. Except for Darwin, no one else was shot, but the lawn around them was damaged. No one dared to say anything about this situation. They continued with their training, trying to stay calm amid the gunfire, and persisted until the end of the training. After the training, everyone was exhausted, especially Darwin, who was almost going crazy. Not only does he have to resist the corrosion of acid and the impact of sound waves, but he also has to be careful to guard against the guns in Mu-En's hands. Those are real guns. If it weren't for his strong ability, he would have been beaten into a hornet's nest by now. Chapter 5. Attack. I was scared to death, that was a real gun. Darwin said timidly that under such great pressure between life and death, he dared not be distracted at all. Everyone nodded. They were all frightened by the training. No one knew who the next shot would be directed at, and they were afraid of getting shot because of distraction. Haha, this is nothing. When you go to the battlefield, there will be more terrifying things than this. He patted Darwin on the shoulder. And your adaptation speed has become faster, hasn't it? This made everyone realize that they had indeed improved their abilities, and Darwin's adaptation speed had surpassed his previous performance. The rifle is to increase your stress. Otherwise, with this kind of playful training, will you really make any progress? Everyone nodded in understanding. They accepted Mu-En's reasoning. Only in times of crisis could they quickly improve their control over their own abilities. Okay, now I'll teach you some fighting techniques so that your fight doesn't end up like a gangster brawl. Mu-En demonstrated a set of deadly fighting skills. Although it was not very good looking, everyone learned a lot from it seriously. Especially Hank and other guys who had no means of long-range attack, they all studied very seriously. They knew that this was the means they would really use in the future. As everyone practiced enthusiastically, the sky gradually darkened. After a day of training, everyone was already exhausted, but their spirits were still pretty good. After all, their abilities had indeed increased a lot. It seems like everyone can still adapt, so let's continue tomorrow. Accompanied by the wailing of the crowd, Mu-En returned to the bedroom with a smile. In the next few days, everyone spent time in training. Although they were very tired every day, no one gave up. That night, everyone sat on the lawn outside the room and imagined the future. Their understanding of their own abilities had improved a lot. I don't know what Charles and the others will do. I can't wait to have a big fight with those bad guys. A 1-meter-long red energy beam was released from Alex's hand. It looked like a lightsaber from Star Wars. This was something he had figured out these days, and it allowed him to gain a certain advantage in close combat. While they were discussing, on the other side of the earth, Charles and others captured Shaw's confidant, a woman who could transform into a diamond body and also had psychic powers, the White Queen. Originally, the White Queen could be immune to Charles's mind reading through her diamond body, but under the violent destruction of Eric and Logan, she had to remove the diamond body and allow Charles to read her memory. It's worse than I thought. Charles looked at the two people around him. Xiao wants to start a nuclear war. Nuclear war, Eric didn't feel anything, but Logan remembered it clearly. He had personally experienced the power of a nuclear bomb. If he did not have super healing abilities, he would have died in the nuclear explosion 20 years ago. Nuclear bomb, very dangerous. As he spoke, Logan squatted in front of the White Queen, and his bone claw suddenly pierced into the White Queen's arm, and blood flowed down along the bone claws. As the White Queen screamed in pain, Logan stared at her and asked, "Where is that guy?" "He went to the CIA." The White Queen answered Logan while enduring the pain. "Now this information is useless. These guys can't go back. The mutants have only two choices, either follow Xiao and become his weapon, or become a corpse." After hearing her answer, Charles and Eric's expressions changed instantly. That guy actually went to find Raven and the others. Looking at the expressions of the two men, the White Queen sneered. So what if they caught her? Their gathered strength had already been dealt with by Xiao. But Logan didn't have any worries. He picked up a box of cigars from the table next to him and said as he opened it, "Don't worry about them. Muen's strength is far beyond your imagination." The people who were resting on the lawn suddenly heard a strange noise. They looked up at the sky and saw figures falling from the sky. "Angie, Hank, Sean, go save people. Everyone else get ready for battle." Under Moon's command, Angel flew into the air first and caught the falling CIA agents one by one, while Sean used his voice to give himself the ability to fly, and cooperated with Hank to save many people. The others also entered combat mode, guarding against enemies that were nowhere to be found. Muen held a pistol in one hand and a half-meter-long saber in the other, sensing the situation around him. "It's here as expected. But do you really think that things will go as you expected?" A faint sound suddenly occurred. This unusual movement caused Muen to fire a shot at the shadow that made the sound as if by reflex. Boom, the bullet didn't hit anyone, but the strange noise did reappear. "Teleportation? I think I know who it is." Muttering to himself, the two weapons in Muen's hands flashed a slight light and were instantly wrapped by the power of the void. Swish! A guy who looked like a red devil and was holding two sharp blades suddenly appeared behind Muen and slashed at him. Dang, the saber blocked the guy's weapon, and Muen stared at him and teased. "Ha, you're really red, did you just escape from hell?" Having said that, he pulled the trigger, wanting to kill this guy. Unfortunately, the shot did not hit the opponent. The moment he pulled the trigger, the red devil was teleported to another place. "Ah, the elusive mouse." Muen's eyes glowed as he spoke, and the surrounding environment turned black and white in his eyes. In this black and white scene, a ball of red energy was rapidly moving through it. "I saw you." He leaped towards the direction of the red energy with his legs, slashing downwards quickly with the saber in his hand. Snort! What? The red devil appeared not far away, screaming loudly, and his tail was chopped off by Muen. He picked up the 2-meter-long tail and swung it at the red devil. Snapped, with a crisp sound, the tail hit the red devil hard, sending it flying. "Ha, nice whip." His words were nothing but a mockery to the red devil, but he had already suffered a serious injury and needed to go to a safe place to be bandaged first. Click! Distorted mist emerged from around him, but it was just some mist, he himself did not move at all. "Don't waste your energy, you can't escape." Just as he was about to swing his sword to kill it, the soil on the ground suddenly turned into a stone wall and rose up quickly, blocking the sword for the red devil, and a steel bar shot out from behind Muen. Clang! Muen swung his knife backhand to block the steel bar, but the force on the steel bar was extremely strong. He stepped back more than 10 steps before he was able to relieve the force of the steel bar. Looking up, he saw a huge tornado appearing in front of him, whistling in the air. The steel bars were shot out from the storm. "Honestly, I kind of like you guys. Your abilities make me miss some equipment." This inexplicable storm reminded Muen of the armor called Zephyr Howling West Wind. He liked to use this armor to complete tasks for a long time when he was playing games before he traveled through time. The power of the void was quickly injected into the gun, and the bolt was pulled towards the huge storm. Chapter 6. Black King Xiao. Boom, the bullet, wrapped in the power of the void, shot into the storm. The storm, which could even destroy houses, could not stop the flying bullet. The moment the bullet pierced through the storm, a scream was heard and the storm dissipated. He was a man with long hair, and blood was gushing from his arms. Double kill. Mu En's words frightened Ji Lu. It was the first time he encountered such an unreasonable ability that could ignore the storm he released and attack him directly. When he saw the other party walking towards him, Ji Lu wanted to activate his own abilities, but he was horrified to find that his abilities seemed to be suppressed and he couldn't use them at all. Isn't it good to live a good life? Why do you have to remove yourself from the category of human beings? As soon as he finished speaking, Mu En kicked Ji Lu's leg fiercely. Ji Lu, who was already injured, was kicked to the ground, and his leg was directly broken by Mu En. The intense pain finally made Ji Lu unable to bear it anymore, and he lay on the ground wailing uncontrollably. Along with the wailing sound of the torrent, a burst of flames came from behind Mu En. Shoo, a flash of knife light appeared, and Mu En's whole body was wrapped in the power of the void, and he cut off the oncoming explosive flames with one knife. Boom! The bursting flames fell to the ground and exploded instantly, and the emitted flames enveloped Mu En. Then everyone saw the person who released the fire attack, a man wearing a helmet. Hello everyone, I'm Sebastian Shaw. Of course, you can also call me Black King. He looked around as he spoke. Red Devil? Torrent? It seems like you have great abilities to be able to hurt them like this. Although he was surprised that Red Devil and Riptide were both seriously injured, Xiao was not worried at all. He was very confident in his mutant abilities. In his opinion, there would never be a mutant in this world who was more powerful than him. Where's the psychic? He's not here. The Red Devil endured the pain of a broken tail and replied that he had searched all over the CIA base but couldn't find Charles. Really? That's a pity. He took off his helmet and said, "My fellow countrymen, the revolution is about to begin. When humans discover our abilities, we will all face a question, to be enslaved or to rule the world." Stop! The agents around him shouted at Xiao, "Put your hands on your head and lie on the ground." Xiao, who was interrupted, glanced at the shouting agent and walked towards the crowd again. "You don't have to choose, but then we will become enemies. Are you willing to fight a second war for those humans who hate you, or join me and be a king?" Boom! An agent interrupted his speech by pulling the trigger of his gun. The bullet hit Xiao almost instantly but did not cause any harm to him. Picking up the bullet that fell on the ground, Xiao aimed at the agent who fired the shot. See? This is the bad nature of human beings. They are afraid of other species and are terrified of us, the superior humans. After saying that, he fired the bullet. Snort! The moment the bullet was ejected from his hand, Mu En rushed out of the flames and held it tightly. The bullet spun rapidly in his palm, and the kinetic energy that moved with Xiao's will also dissipated in an instant. Nice speech. Throwing the bullet on the ground, Mu En looked at the other party and said, "If I remember correctly, you were a Nazi 20 years ago. It seems that you have learned a lot from that little mustache Adolf." Mu En's performance was somewhat beyond Xiao's expectations. In his opinion, these guys should be those who cannot even fully control their mutant abilities. But what about this guy in front of him? Why can he absorb kinetic energy like himself? With all kinds of questions, Xiao looked at Riven and others. His words did not seem to resonate with these people. They still looked at him warily, as if they were facing a great enemy. While he was stunned, the agents around him opened fire, trying to kill this evil mutant. The actions of so many agents gave Mu En a headache. These guys really caused trouble. Countless bullets landed on Xiao's body, but other than making his whole body tremble, they did not cause any harm to him. Instead, they helped him to come back to his senses. "It seems I have to show you what powerful means." As he spoke, he stomped his feet violently. The kinetic energy absorbed from countless bullets gushed out along his feet and quickly spread underground. The entire room suddenly sank. His sudden attack caused everyone who had been training for several days to subconsciously launch an attack, releasing their own attacks on Xiao. Alex's impact beam and Sean's sound waves greeted Xiao. As they expected, the opponent would fall under their joint attack. But the reality was that their attacks were all absorbed by Xiao and did not cause any harm to the opponent at all. After absorbing the attacks of several people, Xiao's hands condensed two balls of energy, red energy shock and white sound waves. Very good, it looks like you have made your choice. As soon as he finished speaking, the energy in his hands was released towards several people. Since they were enemies, he would definitely not show mercy. Facing Xiao's attack, Darwin was the first to rush out and stand in front of everyone. The moment the sound wave hit him, his body turned into sound-absorbing material and absorbed all the sound waves. On the other side, Alex released an energy shock again, attacking Xiao's energy shock. For a moment, the attacks of both sides were somewhat evenly matched, which really surprised Mu-En. It seems that the training has been quite effective. As he said this, he raised his pistol and pulled the trigger at Xiao. Be careful! Following the Red Devil shout, Xiao immediately hid to the side. Although he didn't know why the Red Devil gave him a warning, since he had been reminded, it meant that the pistol might be a threat to him. The moment he fell to the side, the bullet ripped his clothes and hit the fire door behind him. You actually dodged it. It seems like you trust him a lot. Glancing at the Red Devil, I saw a man controlling earth and rocks appeared beside this guy. It was he who controlled the earth and rocks to block the knife for the Red Devil just now. You go and fight them. After saying this to everyone, Mu-En turned to look at Xiao. Absorption and release, good abilities, but I don't know if you have learned how to fight with the Nazis. Mu-En's figure suddenly disappeared and rushed towards Xiao. The moment he appeared, the saber attached with the power of the void slashed towards Xiao. This sudden attack startled Xiao, and he then released an energy shock towards Mu-En. Unfortunately, Mu-En, who possesses the power of the void, is not afraid of any attack. As long as the power of the void spreads throughout his body in an instant, he will never be injured unless the opponent's power exceeds the power of the void. Instead, the energy impact that attacked Mu-En was gradually infected by the power of the void and transformed into void energy. Chapter 7, Calm Down. The energy impact that was assimilated into the power of the void turned into rays in Mu-En's hands and attacked Xiao. Looking at the black and white void rays, Xiao's heart was filled with alarm. He had a feeling that he would surely die if hit by those rays. Not daring to test the destructive power of the void ray, Xiao released the absorbed sound waves from under his feet, and before the void ray hit him, he flew into the air and barely avoided the attack of the ray. As expected of a surviving Nazi, he has a keen sense of danger. Teasing the other party, Mu-En took action again, exerting force with his legs, and rushed to Xiao's side in the blink of an eye. The saber in his hand fell suddenly, leaving a blue light in the air. Sensing the danger approaching, Xiao released sonic waves again, changing direction in mid-air and barely avoiding the vital points. Unfortunately, Mu-En's sword was not so easy to deal with. The moment it hit him, the power of the void attached to the sword had already entered his body through the wound. His abilities and even the energy in his body were suppressed by the power of the void. Xiao, whose abilities were temporarily sealed, fell from the air. This? How is it possible? My ability has disappeared. He looked at his hands in disbelief, he felt his powers disappear. Nothing is impossible. Mu-En raised his pistol while speaking. It's not so fun to cut yourself off from humanity. As he said this, he pulled the trigger on Xiao's head. Boom, a bullet wrapped in the power of the void was fired from the pistol, but it was not shot at Xiao, but hit a stone flying at high speed. At the moment he pulled the trigger and shot Xiao dead, a stone flew towards him at high speed, causing him to turn the gun around. The stones were shattered by the bullets, and Mu-En also saw the situation over there clearly. It was the man who controlled the earth and stones who launched the attack. He was standing next to Jiliu, surrounded by a circle of agents trapped by earth and rocks. Facing the barrier formed by these agents, Sean and Alex had no way to take any action. Snort! A faint sound suddenly appeared, and then a cloud of mist flashed by. Want to run? Realizing the intentions of these guys, Mu-En raised his hand and shot them. Others didn't know, but he could see it clearly. It was the fog that appeared when the Red Devil teleported. Unfortunately, the shot did not hit the teleporting Red Devil, but hit Xiao's arm, failing to stop their actions. The two men came to Jiliu and the natives. Xiao and Jiliu stood up with the help of the natives. Xiao endured the pain from his wound and looked at Mu-En. Next time we meet, I will definitely kill you. What a coincidence. I want to kill you right now. Mu-En gave a sinister smile and pulled the trigger again. Bang! At the moment the gunshot, a wall of earth and stone rose up, and the Red Devil used his teleportation ability to take the natives, Jiliu and Xiao, away from everyone's sight. Watching the bullet hit the wall, Mu-En sighed with some regret. It seems that we need to upgrade our equipment. If his equipment could be more powerful, he could break through the earth and stone walls built by the natives, and then these guys might not be able to escape from him. Seeing Xiao's defeat, everyone cheered. Riven and the others thought that they had survived this battle and had become qualified fighters, while the CIA agents breathed a sigh of relief while cheering. Even though the guy in the helmet had no power to fight back against Mu-En, he seemed invincible in front of them. The guns in their hands were not much stronger than batons, and they could not exert their full power. Even when they attacked with rocket launchers, not only did they fail to hurt the opponent, but the opponent also absorbed the explosion produced by the rocket launcher and used the explosion to attack them. Looking at everyone's happy faces, Mu-En shook his head with a bored look on his face. Compared to Xiao and the others, you are far behind in both combat experience and combat skills. That's why we want you to guide us. Ruwen looked at Mu-En happily. I know our performance is not very good, but isn't this the first time? Forget it, you should go and look at these CIA agents and get them out of the dirt and rocks. They're not much better than you. After saying that, he walked towards his room. Now he just wanted to try to transform the Red Devil's tail into a long whip. After all, this tail feels good to use. Just as we were preparing to make the transformation, we received a communication from Charles and others. Professor? Mu-En asked in a teasing tone while studying the tail, I haven't seen you for a few days. Are you planning to send the rookies out? No, it's Xiao. He went to the CIA, Charles, who was sitting on the plane, said anxiously. I know. Mu-En interrupted him lightly. His ability is very, wait, you said you knew. Charles was stunned. This was clearly news he had just received. How did Mu-En know about it? Yes, I know. Those three guys just ran away from me. He poked the muscle tissue in his tail with tweezers. To be honest, the CIA agent's professionalism is really poor. So many people couldn't even keep an eye on two mutants who had lost their abilities. After hearing what Mu-En said, Charles and Eric were stunned. They felt that Mu-En was talking nonsense. Especially Eric, he knows Xiao best among all people. If the opponent is very weak, he will not become a nightmare in his heart. This is normal. To Mu-En, mutant abilities are not as threatening as real guns and bullets. Logan was holding a cigar in his mouth, not feeling the slightest bit surprised. He had seen more than once the panic expressions on the faces of those guys who relied on mutant powers when they fought with Moon. Don't be so surprised. Haven't you all experienced his abilities? After Logan's reminder, the two reluctantly accepted this matter. Although they had previously thought about letting Mu-En suppress Xiao's abilities, they had expected that this could only be achieved if everyone worked together. But now it seems that Xiao, who has the ability to destroy an army, is not as threatening as the army in front of Mu-En. Although it sounds a bit strange, this is actually the case. When they lose their mutant abilities, they are almost no different from ordinary people and cannot fight against the army at all. Anything else? If not, I'm hanging up. After saying that, without giving Charles a chance to react, Mu-En ended the call directly. Looking at the busy tone on the communicator, Charles looked at Logan with a dull expression. Don't look at me, this guy is always like this. Logan shrugged and continued smoking his cigar. The cigars he got from the White Queen were of very good quality and he liked them very much. After ending the communication, Mu-En devoted himself to the transformation of his tail. The muscles of this tail are very full. As long as some control devices are installed on it, the movement of the tail can be controlled very flexibly. This tail is quite interesting. It would be even better if Darwin's genome could be added to it. Chapter 8. Misunderstanding. Time passed quickly as he transformed his tail, and the sky gradually turned pale. Thanks to everyone's timely action, the CIA's losses were minimized. Except for a few agents who were confirmed dead, most of the agents were only injured. Just as Riven and the others were doing their daily training, Charles and the others rushed back by plane. Are you not hurt? Charles shouted to the crowd. Sure, do we look like we're in trouble? Hank came over with the skeet launcher. Hey, Raven, I'm Hank. Another Hank came over and complained to Raven who had transformed into himself. As soon as he finished speaking, Hank, who was carrying the skeet launcher, turned back into Raven's own appearance. Haha, this is what Muen asked me to do, to disrupt your vision. After that, she turned into Angie again and ran towards Darwin. Seeing the looks of the few people, Charles and Eric seemed a little surprised. They really didn't realize that it was Raven who answered them just now. Moreover, everyone's current situation is much better than that of the previous few days. Although they still look like they are playing around, they are all using their abilities to deal with various situations at all times. Darwin's adaptation speed has been greatly improved, Alex can even release red energy blasts with his hands, and Sean can fly through the air with the help of sound waves. The changes in each person surprised them, and the improvement in everyone's strength was beyond their expectations. Compared to the two of them, Logan seemed much calmer, walking towards Alex with a cigar in his mouth. Your name is Alex, right? Yeah. Alex nodded and looked at Logan in front of him puzzledly. What's the matter? Nothing, just use your ability to help me light my cigar. After saying that, he held the cigar and put it towards the energy shock. The lighter he used to light the cigar was out of oil, and the temperature of this energy shock was not low, which could help him solve the fire source problem. The moment the cigar touched the energy impact, a flame burned from the cigar. Seeing the cigar was lit, Logan blew out the flame and took a puff with a satisfied look on his face. Da-da-da! A burst of gunfire suddenly rang in everyone's ears, and Charles and Eric immediately became alert. Ha, you're back. Muen raised a submachine gun and spoke to several people. Although I knew they would be back soon, I didn't expect that they would come back just after one night. After saying that, he took out a few grenades from his waist and threw them at Sean and the others amid a burst of gunfire. Seeing Muen's actions, Eric immediately released magnetic force, controlling the grenades and bullets to fly into the sky. As the explosion sounded in the air, Charles asked angrily, what do you mean? Why are you attacking everyone? The two stared at Muen. They didn't understand why Muen did this and attacked Riven and others who were unprepared. Muen didn't answer, but just raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the two of them. Seeing Charles and Eric staring at Muen with hostility, Raven and the others stopped training and walked over. Charles, you've wronged Muen. Raven stepped forward and said, this is Muen's training for us. If he really wanted to kill us, how could he use this method? Her words were unanimously agreed by everyone. With Muen's strength, there was no need to go through so much trouble to deal with them. And they all saw with their own eyes yesterday how Muen defeated those three powerful mutants. With Muen's fighting skills, it would be too easy to kill them. Why would he need to use guns and grenades? Seeing that everyone was defending Muen, the two were somewhat puzzled, but still apologized to Muen. I'm sorry, it's our fault, but isn't your training too dangerous? If something unexpected happens, everyone will get hurt. But Muen looked at the two of them as if they were fools and threw a grenade at Riven and the others. The moment the grenade fell to the ground, Darwin rushed out and pressed the grenade under his body. Boom! As the two men looked on in horror, the grenade exploded, but Darwin got up from the ground unharmed. You don't really think I would joke with their lives? As he spoke, he threw a few more grenades at the crowd, and Riven and the others took action. Sean released sound waves at the grenade, but his sound waves did not destroy the grenade, but changed its direction, making it fly into the sky. Angel and Alex also attacked at the same time, one fired an acid bomb to corrode the grenade, and the other's energy impact directly blew up the grenade. Even Hank and Raven raised their guns and fired continuously to blow up the falling grenades. Although their cooperation was not perfect, they had a certain tacit understanding, which opened their eyes. Is this the result of these few days of training? Eric found it hard to believe that before they left, they were just a group of rookies, but now they were cooperating so well. Of course. Muen glanced at the two of them as a matter of course, their potential is no worse than yours. Don't underestimate the power of any mutant. Although these two will be leaders of mutants in the future, they are still too young now and too easily influenced by emotions. Just like before, the two of them only saw themselves attacking everyone, but didn't see the agents around them, and didn't take any action. If they paid a little attention, they would find that these agents did not react to the gunshots just now, which was very abnormal in a place that had just been attacked. If they could pay attention to what's going on around them, they wouldn't be so anxious or question themselves so much. After hearing Muen's words, the two looked at each other and apologized again. They knew that anyone would be unhappy with their behavior just now. In fact, Muen was not too angry. He just felt that the two people needed to restrain themselves. They were of the same age and there was no need for them to always act like parents. This is particularly serious for Charles. Just now he seemed to be concerned about everyone's safety, but in fact, in his subconscious mind he did not recognize the abilities of others. This was his biggest problem. It was not good to always worry too much about other people's abilities. He took out a dark red whip and waved it at everyone. This is yesterday's spoils of war. I have made it into a weapon. I call it the Devil's Touch. Does anyone want to experience it? After a night of transformation, he had completed the initial transformation of the Red Devil's tail. The reason why it is named Devil's Touch is, on the one hand, because this thing is the tail of the Red Devil, and on the other hand, because of his transformation of the tail. He installed neural sensors and discharge devices on the handle of the Devil's Touch. Not only can the whip cooperate with one's movements and be as flexible as an arm, but it can also release a powerful electric current the moment it hits the enemy, rendering the opponent unable to resist. However, Muen was not satisfied with this. If it were not for the backward equipment, many things could not be manufactured. He could have made his tail into a living weapon, instead of having to transform it step by step like he was doing now. Chapter 9. Transfer. This dark red whip caught Eric's attention. Is this the tail of the red guy next to Xiao? He remembered very clearly the guy whose whole body was red and looked like he had returned from hell. This also reminded Charles, and he remembered that in the memory he read from the White Queen, there was a red mutant besides Xiao, and that guy's ability was teleportation. Thinking of this, Charles couldn't help but be shocked. Although he knew from Logan that Muen was very powerful, he still found it hard to believe that Muen could cut off the tail of the most agile Red Devil. After all, no one knew where that guy would appear. How powerful is this whip? Charles was really curious about the power of this tail that Moon had transformed into a whip. As soon as he finished speaking, the tail seemed to come alive, unfolding in Muen's hands and tying him tightly. Even when Charles struggled, it continued to tighten. Let me go. Hearing Charles's difficult request, Muen's wrist shook slightly, and the long whip that was originally tightly wrapped around Charles fell off instantly. What do you think of the power of this whip? Muen asked jokingly. Cough, cough, cough. Charles took a deep breath and coughed a few times. I don't think it's a whip, but more like a giant python. When the whip was wrapped around his body, the tremendous force made him unable to resist. Just as he said, the whip was like a giant python, trying to break his bones. After a long while, Charles finally recovered and looked at everyone. There is something I need to inform you of. On their way back on the plane, he discussed with Moira that he planned to take everyone to a safer place. Although Xiao was repelled by Muen, no one can guarantee that he will not make a comeback. In order to prevent being attacked by Xiao again, Charles plans to take everyone to his own manor. Not only is there a sparse population there, but there is also a large enough venue for everyone to train. Most importantly, no one knows where his home is. This way, even if Xiao prepared to attack again, he wouldn't be able to find anyone's trace. In order to prevent Xiao from attacking again, I plan to take everyone to a safe place. His proposal was recognized by everyone. They had witnessed how powerful Xiao was last night. They had no way to deal with Xiao. If Muen had not taken action, they would have been killed by that guy. Although Xiao will not take action in the short term, who is willing to be on guard all the time? Seeing everyone go back to their rooms to pack up their things, Moon patted Logan on the shoulder. Why do I feel like your actions aren't going smoothly? That's not the case. Exhaling cigar smoke, Logan sat on the flower bed. We caught a woman who can turn into diamonds. Charles learned about Shaw's plan from her memory. This is the first time I've seen such a crazy guy in my life. He actually planned to start a nuclear war around the world. Start a global nuclear war? Muen raised his eyebrows with interest. He had some impression of this matter. Xiao believed that mutants were products of atoms and could evolve in nuclear radiation. I originally thought that guy was just talking, but I didn't expect that he was actually preparing to implement it and plan to start a nuclear war worldwide. It seems that Adolf's mustache has had a profound influence on him. Apart from that warmonger, Muen could not think of anyone else who could influence Xiao and make him think of starting a nuclear war. Stopping thinking about that guy, Muen glanced at the Devil's Touch in his hand. Would you like to experience the power of the Devil's Touch? And you can give me some advice as well. In response to Muen's request, Logan rolled his eyes. He was not a fool, so why should he experience the power of a weapon? His ability is super self-healing, not super resistance to attacks. Seeing Logan like this, Mu-En could only withdraw his whip awkwardly. After all, he couldn't force the experiment if the other party didn't agree, right? Everyone packed up quickly, and soon everyone boarded the plane to Charles's manor. On the way to the manor, Moon came and sat down in front of Charles. As a professor, you should have a lot of experimental equipment at home, right? Of course, if you want to publish a paper, you must have a lot of experimental data to support it. Is there any problem? Charles nodded. No problem, I need to see your equipment, maybe there's something that can help me. Mu-En plans to use this opportunity to make some equipment to avoid encountering a situation like yesterday in the future. Xavier Manor is so big. This was everyone's first reaction after getting off the plane. It was the first time they had seen such a spacious place. Charles and Raven, on the other hand, looked calm. This was the place where they had lived since childhood and they were already accustomed to it. Damn capitalists! Mu-En looked at this huge manor and cursed secretly. They worked hard to complete their missions on the battlefield, but were only paid a few $100,000, and at most they could buy a small farm to be self-sufficient. But what about Charles? His manor is almost bigger than a farm. The huge lawn is big enough for horse racing. Moreover, the place where they got off the plane was the manor's exclusive helipad. Although he always knew that Charles was rich, this situation still made Mu-En feel the huge gap between the rich and the poor. It seems like we have to charge a commission. Of course, Mu-En was just talking, he never changed the commission. After all, this was the reputation of a mercenary. Walking into the manor with everyone, this castle-like house is equally shocking. It's worthy of being the mutant school of the future. These rooms are enough for those little mutants to live in. Looking at the rows of rooms, Mu-En kept muttering to himself. There are all kinds of valuable things in the house, including paintings and sculptures, exuding an atmosphere of luxury from the inside out. Even the doors of that room were custom-made with precious wood, reflecting the financial strength of Charles's family in every aspect. Hopefully his equipment won't let me down too much. Mu-En has now begun to look forward to it. With Charles's current economic level, the instruments and equipment in his home should be of top quality. As long as the minimum requirements can be met, he can create some things to improve his combat capabilities. During the tour, Charles arranged rooms for everyone one by one, and finally took Moon to his laboratory. Most of the world's top equipment is concentrated here, which should be able to meet your needs. Looking around the laboratory, Mu-En nodded. The equipment here could almost meet his minimum requirements for manufacturing equipment. Not bad, it seems that I can finally make those little gadgets of mine. As he spoke, he started to get busy in the laboratory, completely ignoring Charles's existence, and Charles just smiled, turned around and left the laboratory. To be honest, there weren't many things that Mu-En planned to make. He planned to make several pieces of equipment and a virtual energy device that could suppress abilities, and then strengthen the demon's touch. Chapter 10. Equipment. Since coming to the laboratory, Mu-En has been spending every day in it, almost treating it as his own bedroom. One evening, after tightening the last screw, he relaxed. He stretched in the chair, and his body stretched out with a crisp sound. Mu-En leaned back on the back of the chair and said, "Finally done." He has been making these parts for so many days, and he has carefully debugged each one of them, so that he can manufacture the equipment in one go. Where should we start? Mu-En rubbed his stubble as he looked at the parts on the table. Let's start with the virtual energy device. After saying that, he picked up the parts of the virtual energy device and began to manufacture it. Originally, the nullifier was the main component of the nullifier drone, which could expand the coverage of the nullifier shield as the drone rose higher. But Mu-En did not choose to manufacture drones. The reason is very simple. After releasing the null energy shield, the virtual energy drone cannot protect itself. This means that if someone destroys the drone, the nullifier shield will disappear completely. Moreover, with the current technical conditions, he couldn't even produce the Orokin battery. Even if he produced a nullifier drone, he couldn't release a nullifier shield. So Mu-En planned to use his own void power as an energy source and utilize the void energy device to create a void energy field around him. Even though the virtual energy stand has disappeared, it can reflect all attacks outside the stand. When the opponent enters the virtual energy stand, their abilities will be suppressed, forcing them to fight with you. As the precision components were assembled together, a mechanical watch appeared in Mu-En's hands. "Ha, it's done. How about trying it first?" As he spoke, he put on the watch and pressed the control button on the watch. A light blue energy instantly spread out from the watch and turned into an invisible presence that enveloped a 2-meter radius around him. For now, that's pretty much enough. Feeling the opinions of the people around him, Mu-En nodded with satisfaction. The reason why the virtual energy field is only 2 meters is that the minimum coverage range he set on the watch is 2 meters, and the maximum coverage range is a radius of 10 meters. This is enough for Mu-En. After all, the main function of the null energy position is to defend against attacks hidden in the dark. Pressing the control button again, the virtual energy field surrounding Mu-En gradually disappeared. The effect is quite good, and this watch can continue to be equipped with new functions. This watch is very convenient to wear, and he can add more functions to it to deal with different situations. Wearing the watch, Moon began to assemble new equipment. This time he created a weapon, an energy blade that he designed specifically with reference to the glorious sword Excalibur Holy Sword. Like the null energy watch, this energy blade also uses the power of the void as its energy source. Although it is not as powerful as a magnificent sword, it can still cut through iron like mud. Most importantly, he can increase the output of void power and use energy blades to release sword energy to launch long-range attacks. After continuous assembly and debugging, he finally made the energy blade. The energy blade looks like a baton at first glance, but after the void power is injected, 3 void energies emerge from the stick and entangle with each other, forming a sharp blade. It looks pretty good. He gently swung it at a steel pipe next to him. He didn't feel any obstruction. The energy blade passed through the steel pipe very easily. It looked like light was shining through the steel pipe. But the moment the energy blade passed through, a straight crack appeared on the steel pipe, and a small section of the steel pipe fell off. Ha, isn't this the laser sword from Star Wars? Mu-En smiled and raised his eyebrows. Try the long-range attack of the sword energy again. After walking more than 10 meters away, Mu-En increased the injection of void power and swung the sword at the steel pipe again. A black and white sword energy shot out from the energy blade and penetrated the steel pipe in an instant. With the sound of the steel pipe falling to the ground, the sword energy gradually dissipated. The range of the sword energy is about 20 meters. It seems that it can only be used as a special measure. The sword energy of the energy blade could not be maintained for a long time, which did not meet Mu-En's initial expectations. In his design, the sword energy should be able to last for more than 10 seconds, but now it only lasts for a few seconds and then begins to dissipate, which is far from his design. However, Mu-En still accepted this situation. After all, it was very good to be able to produce it using equipment that could only meet the minimum requirements. After cutting off the power of the void, the sharp blade instantly disappeared, and the energy blade returned to the shape of a short stick. After putting away the energy blade, Mu-En began the final assembly work. The remaining parts are used to assemble the last piece of equipment, and this piece of equipment is used to make up for his shortcomings in medium and long-range combat. The equipment is called the War Blade. It is a ring-shaped weapon with 3 sharp blades. After being thrown, it can return to the hand like a boomerang. Compared with the first 2 pieces of equipment, the difficulty of assembling the battle blade has increased a lot. After all, this weapon is used for direct attack. If anything goes wrong, you will be the only one who will be in trouble. Therefore, Mu-En devoted almost all his energy to the assembly of the battle blade, ensuring that every joint of the battle blade was firmly connected together without any problems. After the last part was installed, only a palm-sized battle blade disc appeared in his hand. Finally finished. Mu-En yawned and fell asleep on the chair. Assembling this weapon was really energy-consuming. Now he had no mood to experiment with weapons. He just wanted to have a good sleep. The next day Mu-En woke up from his sleep. He struggled to find the frisbee he had made last night. After searching for a while, he found that the device was hanging on the chair. So it's here. Fortunately I found it. If I had lost it, I would have to start over again. Thinking of the assembly process last night, he couldn't help but feel a little numb. The hand holding the war blade flying disc exerted a little force, and 3 sheaths popped out from the edge of the flying disc, and then the sharp blade also extended from the sheath of the flying disc. As expected of a weapon that took me so much effort to create, its sensitivity is really good. As he spoke, he swung the blade out. The blade spun rapidly in the air, and the moment it hit the wall, it left several cutting marks on the wall. After hitting the wall, it flew directly towards Mu-En and returned to his hand. The effect of the battle blade is good, both attack and recovery have met his expectations. After retracting the blade of the battle sword and hanging it on the watch, Mu-En nodded with satisfaction. I hope those guys won't hide for too long, otherwise all this equipment will be made in vain. Chapter 11. Undercurrent. After completing the manufacturing of several pieces of equipment, Mu-En took out the Devil's Touch. These days, in addition to making accessories for equipment, he also made some things for the Demon's Touch. Considering that the Demon's Touch is a biological tissue and has poor defense against sharp weapons, Mu-En plans to attach a layer of metal shield to the Demon's Touch. The metal guard not only enhances the defensive capabilities of the Demon's Touch, but also enhances the attack effect of the Demon's Touch, allowing the current of the discharge device to spread throughout the entire whip. Compared with the previous work, this job was extremely simple. It didn't take long for Mu-En to complete the transformation of the Devil's Touch. At this time, the Devil's Touch was silver white all over. If you look closely, you can see that the whip is covered with countless metal scales. These scales are tightly buckled together. No matter how Mu-En swung the whip, it did not loosen. It's quite handy, and Mu-En activated the discharge device, and currents circled around the long whip. I'm afraid no one can withstand this whip. With a slight movement of his wrist, the Devil's Touch curled up by itself and returned to Mu-En's hand. Hellfire Club Xiao, with one arm in a cast and his body wrapped in bandages, sat on the sofa, looking at the young man standing in front of him. Riptide, is this the new member you mentioned? The guy in front of him looked like a gangster, and there was nothing special about him at all. However, he was very satisfied with the expression on this guy's face. He could tell at a glance that this was a crazy guy. Right. Riptide, who was sitting in a wheelchair, nodded. He met this guy when he was recovering from his injury. Ron, show the Black King what you are capable of. Hearing Jiliu's order, Ron's hands instantly ignited with hot flames, and the temperature of the entire room continued to rise. Flame? It looks good. Red Devil, take him to test it. As soon as Xiao finished speaking, Ron, with flames burning in his hands, disappeared, and Xiao and Jiliu turned to look at the glass behind them. On the other side of the glass was a spacious field. Ron, who had just disappeared, was at the edge of the field, and the Red Devil was standing behind him on crutches. Now it's your turn to show your worth to the Black King. As soon as he finished speaking, a heavy human-shaped metal plate rose up in the venue. After seeing the metal plate, Ron did not hesitate at all. The flames burning in his hands turned into two pillars of fire and shot towards the metal plate. Tisk! The scorching flames quickly burned the metal plate red, and under the gaze of several people, it gradually began to twist and deform, and finally melted into a pool of molten iron on the ground. This is my power. Ron turned and looked at Xiao on the other side. He raised his hands and announced excitedly. Your abilities are great, but if you want to join the club, you need more than just abilities. Xiao was quite satisfied with Ron's abilities, but it would be too easy to just let him join. Besides, they still had important things to do, so they had to give this new member a task. Looking down at the injuries on himself and others, he felt a dull pain in the wounds. That damn guy! As he was talking, an idea came to his mind. Let this guy recruit more members and let them make trouble. Since they are no match for Moon, they will just create chaos everywhere. Let those mutants move around, and completely bring them down. Ron was given the title of Black Knight by Shah, who asked him to gather more of his kind to destroy the country. Xiao was sitting in front of the window, looking at Ron below, who was wearing a leather jacket covered with rivets, and he smiled. Let's make trouble. Let's completely mess up this world. As long as there is enough chaos, the mutants will have no time to care about themselves, and then his plan can continue to be implemented. It's a pity that Emma has been captured. Thinking of the captured White Queen, Xiao couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Red Devil, pay attention to Emma's news and look for traces of psychic abilities. Psychics are extremely useful. Even if he can't find the White Queen, he must find a replacement. After finishing his research, Mu-En returned to the crowd. Although they saw Mu-En again, everyone did not have much emotional fluctuation. Everyone devoted themselves to the training, and their training was very effective. Everyone cooperated very well and their performance was much better than before. Looks like everyone is doing pretty well. Indeed, they all have good talents, especially Riven. Her fighting talent is outstanding. Logan nodded slightly, holding a cigar in his mouth. As the coach who replaced Moon, he was very satisfied with everyone's talents and cooperation. These days, they are all training very hard, and everyone wants to maximize their abilities. Although he cannot help everyone use their abilities, he has a helper. Charles is extremely talented. While ensuring that everyone is trained, he also develops a training plan for mutant abilities for everyone. Charles also has a lot of credit for the obvious progress made by everyone. It seems that you have high expectations for them, so let me try their results. As he said that, he drew out the Devil's Touch and thrust it towards Darwin. Slap! The whip fell on Darwin, making a crisp sound, which attracted everyone's attention. They clearly saw that Darwin's body had turned into metal, and what was attacking Darwin was a long whip with a metallic luster. Don't just stand there, this is a test for you. Muen smiled, shook his wrist lightly, and the long whip wrapped tightly around Darwin's body. Suddenly, an electric current appeared and wrapped around the whip. Darwin, who was entangled in the whip, was also severely shocked. However, Darwin's adaptation speed was obviously much faster. A metal mesh structure suddenly appeared on his body surface, directing all the electric current into the ground. Faraday cage? Looks like you've been studying a lot lately. Darwin was thrown out by swinging the whip hard, but this still did not pose any difficulty for him. A layer of flesh membrane quickly grew on his limbs, allowing him to glide in the air, and he finally landed safely with the help of Angel. Muen nodded. Good cooperation. Then, next one. The whip was swung out again, and this time its target was Hank. Facing the incoming whip, Hank bent his body slightly and stretched out his hand to grab the incoming whip. His ability is reflected in his whole body, and his strong body allows him to withstand the tremendous force from the whip. The moment he grabbed the whip, Hank took several steps back and successfully caught the whip that Muen swung. Haha, I caught it. Looking at the excited Hank, Muen smiled even more happily. Yes, you did catch it, but have you ever thought about the consequences of catching the whip? As soon as he finished speaking, the whip was filled with electricity again. The intense electric current instantly spread throughout Hank's body, causing his hands that were holding the whip to hold it even tighter. Looking at Hank, whose whole body was twitching due to the electric shock, Muen laughed and swung the whip, throwing Hank towards the crowd. Chapter 12. Test. Faced with Hank being thrown away, Eric released his magnetic force, and the metal on Hank's body saved him, allowing him to slowly land under Eric's magnetic force. Hank, how are you feeling? Charles ran over and asked nervously. I'm fine, the current is about the same as a stun gun, it doesn't have much effect on me. Hank, lying on the ground, explained that his physical fitness was much stronger than average, and he could still withstand the electric shock that could make a person faint. He just didn't expect that the electric current would spread throughout the entire whip, causing him to suffer a loss. Now his whole body is numb. Let me tell you one thing, don't judge a person by his appearance. The same goes for weapons and equipment. Looking at the people surrounding Hank, Muen said with a smile. It's just a test now, and everyone will just feel pain at most. But in a battle, the enemy will not show mercy like him, so they must learn to distinguish. After confirming that Hank was okay, everyone stood up and looked at Muen. We are going to give you this sentence as well. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone used their abilities to attack Muen. Eric used magnetism to control a large number of steel pipes to fly towards Moon, while Sean and Alex released their abilities to the maximum extent. The strong sound waves destroyed the lawn, and the red energy shock also rushed straight towards Moon. That's a pretty good cooperation, but it's a pity that it doesn't work on me. He reached out and pressed the watch on his left hand. The power of the void passed through the watch and turned into a void energy field that enveloped the 2-meter area around him. Clang clang, the steel pipe hit the stand and was directly bounced away, and the extremely destructive sound waves and energy pulses were also reflected by the virtual energy stand. Almost at the moment when those attacks were reflected, everyone's coordination was disrupted, and they began to dodge frantically, avoiding those reflected attacks. Boom boom boom. Those reflected attacks exploded on the lawn, and the originally flat lawn was overturned by the blown soil. It seems that you are all able to use your abilities flexibly. I just wonder what you would do if you lose your abilities. Muen smiled cunningly and rushed towards the crowd in their confused eyes. The first one was Charles. The moment Moon came to him, he found that his abilities had disappeared and his connection with everyone was cut off. You. As soon as he opened his mouth, he was punched in the stomach by Muen. Your psychic ability is indeed good. You can easily command everyone to cooperate with each other, but your shortcomings are also very obvious. If you are disabled, they will be in chaos. After patting Charles, who was kneeling on the ground and retching, Moon turned and rushed towards Eric beside him. Facing the oncoming Mu-En, Eric was prepared. A large number of steel pipes surrounded him, and under his control they were woven into a huge cage. Although you are better than Charles, you are only better than Charles. This guy relies too much on his own abilities, or is too confident in his abilities. Although his abilities are very powerful, he should always be careful to put himself in a safe position during a battle. Even though Eric protected himself with steel pipes, it didn't mean he was safe. After all, there were still many things in the world that couldn't be controlled by magnetism. Mu-En touched his waist and a metal stick appeared in his hand. The next moment, the metal stick was filled with the power of the void, forming a sharp energy blade that instantly cut open the woven cage. The moment he broke the cage, Mu-En retracted the energy blade and punched Eric hard in the stomach. What? Eric doubled over and screamed, then began to retch like Charles. Remember, next time, keep yourself safe. After saying that, he looked at the others, who seemed a little panicked at this moment. Don't be afraid. He hooked his finger at everyone, stomped his feet hard and rushed towards them again. This time his targets were Raven and Darwin. They had no ranged attack capabilities, but they both had a good grasp of fighting skills. Let me see how well you guys master the fighting skills. The moment he finished speaking, he kicked Darwin sideways. Darwin, whose abilities were suppressed, had no choice but to fight back. While he was resisting the side kick, he also held Moon's legs tightly. I caught him, everyone come together. Darwin shouted loudly with difficulty. Moon's kick was not something an ordinary person could resist. He felt as if his ribs were broken. At his call, Riven also rushed forward. The virtual energy stance made her ability ineffective, but she did not stop at all and pounced towards Mu-En. That's a good idea. Seeing the two people's actions, Mu-En nodded slightly, and the smile on his face became even stronger. It's a pity that you are too naive. He jumped on one leg, clamped Darwin tightly with both legs, turned his waist suddenly, and Darwin fell directly to the ground, while Mu-En sat on his back. Your idea is right, but remember that after controlling the opponent, you must ensure that the opponent loses the ability to resist. After saying that, she looked at Riven, who was rushing towards her. She remembered everything Mu-En said when he taught them fighting skills. The moment he got close to Mu-En, he threw a handful of sand at Mu-En's face, then bent down and kicked him. These are what Mu-En said, to gain the upper hand in the battle. Her attack was effective, and Mu-En retreated to the side for the first time, which others failed to do. Not bad, although a little anxious, you are much better than them. Reaching out and grabbing Riven's kicking leg, Moon nodded and praised her. Despite being praised, Riven still did not stop. She imitated Mu-En's previous actions, raised her legs and hooked them around Mu-En's body, trying to put Mu-En down. But she forgot that Mu-En's physical fitness was much stronger than theirs, and her waist strength was not as good as Mu-En's. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make Mu-En waver at all. Ha 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 ha, Mu-En was amused by Riven. If you want to use this trick, you should think about how to strengthen your waist strength. You can't do it now. Letting go of Riven's legs, Moon laughed and turned to look at Alex and the other two. Come on, let me try your fighting skills. Compared to Darwin and Raven, Alex and the other three did not have a very good grasp of fighting skills. Alex is slightly better, but Sean and Angel have very poor grasp of fighting skills, even worse than some fighting enthusiasts. Although we are all mutants and have mutant abilities, have you ever thought about what you would do if you encountered an enemy with similar abilities to mine? Although the mutant ability is powerful, don't give up practicing your fighting skills. Perhaps these fighting skills will save your life at the critical moment. Faced with Mu-En's evaluation, everyone remained silent. They knew that Mu-En was right. Once their mutant abilities could not be used, skillful use of fighting skills would be the key to protecting themselves. Just as Mu-En was commenting on everyone, a phone suddenly rang in the house. Chapter 13. Chaos arises. A few days ago. State of Mexico. A wet man walked out of the water, and in front of him stood a guy dressed like a biker gang. Kent, join us. We are the kings of this world. Ron's face was full of fanaticism. He became a member of the Hellfire Club and clearly understood the club's purpose. People like him and Kent who are born with special powers are advanced humans, born to be kings who rule the world. His fanatical expression made Kent slightly stunned. He didn't understand why Ron suddenly seemed like a different person after just going out for a while. Ron, you are. You know what? I met a guy with the same special power. He could create a tornado just by waving his hand. Ron excitedly explained to Kent the spectacular sight he saw when he encountered the rapids. Compared to the huge storm released by the rapids, the flames controlled by his hands were so tiny. So, I went with Riptide to a place called the Hellfire Club, where I passed the test and became a member. Riptide told me that we are mutants, advanced humans, and the goal of the Hellfire Club is to build a world ruled by us. Ron's words made Kent's blood boil. He was fed up with hiding in the water and avoiding humans every day. He wanted to join the organization behind Ron and become the king who ruled the world. No need to say, I'm in. Kent stood in the moonlight, with fish fins stretched out all over his body. As his body kept shaking, he looked like a monster. Okay, let's go find the others. The leader said that we should make this world lively. Ron smiled and looked so crazy, but Kent was even more fanatical than him. He wanted to let all those who had laughed at him know that he was a more advanced being. People like them who possess special powers have their own small circle, which makes their actions very clear. Some thugs with special powers quickly formed a team under their call. Brothers, we shouldn't live like this. We are the higher class of humans, and those humans are only fit to be our slaves. Ron stood on a high place and shouted to the people gathered below. His words resonated with many people. They clearly have more powerful powers, but like rats, they can only hide in dark corners, while ordinary humans can enjoy life. They refused to accept it, believing that this was the kind of life they deserved, and that ordinary humans were only worthy of being their slaves. Everyone stared at Ron, waiting for his speech. Now the time has come. The Hellfire Club will be everyone's backer. We will destroy the human regime and make the world surrender to us. Ron roared, his emotions running high, his hands instantly ignited into flames, illuminating the surroundings. Let's find our kind, get more of them to join us, and turn this world into complete chaos. Oh! Everyone's emotions were aroused. They looked at the flames released by Ron and excitedly released their own abilities. Almost in an instant, this place became like a devil's cave, with demons dancing wildly. At Ron's call, these people scattered across America, searching for their own kind while using their abilities to wreak destruction and announce their existence to the world. As they took action, chaos broke out everywhere. They acted without scruples and used their abilities wantonly. Some people relied on their abilities to rob banks, while others returned to their hometowns to seek crazy revenge. Their actions were discovered by CIA agents and reached Charles's ears. After ending the call with Moira, Charles returned to the crowd. Our special training has ended. Feeling the surprised looks of the crowd, Charles continued, our kind are causing riots all over the country. I think Xiao must be behind this. We have to stop them. Mutants are rioting across the country. Muen raised his eyebrows and asked with interest, do we need to deal with those agents? That's right. Charles nodded. Only we can fight against those guys. Besides, they are searching for their own kind. Many little mutants have been forcibly captured by them. Destroying cities and capturing mutants reminded Eric of his childhood. The metal products around him began to shake wildly along with his trembling body, and the memories buried deep in his heart emerged. Take a deep breath, Eric. Charles pressed his fingers on Eric's temple, calming Eric's violent power. Take a deep breath, everything will pass. With Charles's comfort, Eric finally calmed down. He opened his eyes and looked at Charles with a complicated look. Thank you. If it weren't for Charles, his power would have probably gone out of control, and he didn't want to experience that feeling again. Nothing, but we have to go. We have to stop those guys. Charles looked up at everyone. We will divide into 3 groups and go together. We must get rid of them as soon as possible. Hearing this, Moon looked at Logan. Looks like you have to take care of 2 little friends. It's not just Logan, it's also the same for himself. After all, everyone is a newbie and accidents can easily happen. With them leading the team, many detours can be avoided. The teams were easy to divide. Charles and Eric were in a group with 2 girls, Logan was with Darwin and Sean, and Moon was in a team with Hank and Alex. After dividing into teams, Charles led everyone onto the plane on the tarmac and flew towards the direction of the nearest mutant riot. Everyone on the plane changed their equipment and put on their own combat uniforms, while Logan and Moon put on their respective tactical equipment. Arriving above the target city, Mu-En turned around and looked at everyone. Then, see you in a few days. He laughed and kicked Hank and Alex off the plane, then he waved to everyone, leaned back and jumped off the plane. Skydiving is a common thing for Moon, but it is a bit scary for Hank and Alex. What? The screams of the two echoed in the sky, making Mu-En laugh even more happily. Reaching out and gently pressing his ears, Mu-En laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, relax, skydiving is not as scary as you think." Hearing the sound coming from the headphones, the two of them stiffened their bodies, feeling the experience of weightlessness. "Hold on to the parachute cord on your harness, we're going to land." Under Mu-En's instructions, the two men hurriedly reached for the two parachute cords on their straps, their bodies stretched straight, waiting for Mu-En's instructions. "Prepare." Puff before Mu-En could say the word open, Alex opened his parachute because he was too nervous, and Hank opened his parachute right after him. Seeing the two people's figures suddenly stop, Mu-En couldn't help but shook his head, and then opened his umbrella bag. Chapter 14. Goal. The three of them slowly descended in the air and finally landed safely in the wilderness outside the city. "Can you act according to orders next time? We were supposed to land in the city, but now we've landed outside the city." Glancing at the slightly desolate environment around him, Mu-En said helplessly to the two of them. If these two guys hadn't opened their parachutes too early, they wouldn't have had to land in this place. However, Mu-En was still somewhat relieved in his heart that the two guys did not open their parachutes too early, otherwise they would probably still be floating in the sky. Mu-En's words made the two men feel a little embarrassed. They were really too nervous, and the feeling of weightlessness made them feel very insecure. Seeing the two people feeling embarrassed, Mu-En patted them on the shoulders. "Relax, it's just skydiving, what's there to be afraid of?" After saying that, they walked towards the highway. They had to get into the city quickly. Those mutants who were creating chaos in the city were waiting for their capture. They walked on the road for a long time and finally saw a pickup truck slowly approaching. Several people were surprised and waved to the pickup truck. The pickup truck stopped in front of the group. As the window lowered, a burly man stuck his head out and looked at them. "Want a ride?" "Yes, we are going to the city ahead. Here are our certificates." Mu-En smiled and took out the temporary documents issued by the CIA to several people and told the man their identities. The ID he showed surprised the man. These guys who could only hitchhike were actually from the famous CIA, the most prestigious spy organization. "What's your mission in the city?" The man's eyes suddenly lit up and he shouted excitedly, "Ha, I get it. You are here to deal with those magicians who destroyed the city." Yes, in the eyes of men, those mutant abilities are nothing more than advanced magic. As long as they understand the principles, anyone can do the same thing. However, the magicians' methods were too advanced. In addition, these guys were destroying things everywhere and snatching children, which made many people afraid to go out, resulting in no one being able to crack their magic. "Well, almost. Although those magicians are very powerful, we are not bad either." He patted Alex beside him and said, "Show him." At Mu-En's signal, a red beam of light slowly emerged from Alex's hand, which made the man even more excited. "This is high-tech equipment made by the CIA specifically to deal with magicians," Mu-En explained with a smile. After hearing Mu-En's words and seeing the red beam of light appearing in Alex's hand, the man became even more excited. "I see. Those magicians have high-tech equipment, too, right?" "That's right, we have to recover the weapons in their hands. After all, those weapons are too dangerous." The man seemed very satisfied after having his guess confirmed by Mu-En. He opened the car door and motioned for a few people. "Come up. Those bad magicians' good days are over." With the roar of the car, several people sat in the car and entered the city, but Hank and Alex were hesitant to speak. They wanted to say that this was not magic, but their innate superpowers. Amid the two men's conflicted gazes, Mu-En sat in the passenger seat and talked loudly with the man, laughing from time to time. Finally, the pickup truck entered the city and stopped in front of a store selling fishing equipment. "I'll just drop you off here. I have to go buy some fishing gear." Mu-En didn't say anything. After all, they had already entered the city. They couldn't ask the other party to carry them all the time, right? After getting off the bus, the man waved goodbye to them. "I hope I can see good news about you on the news." Mu-En waved his hand and started searching the city with the two of them. Although it is certain that there are mutants wreaking havoc in the city, these mutants are still human after all, and it is impossible for them to wreak havoc 24 hours a day. Therefore, Mu-En and his team could only go to the damaged areas to check the situation and try to find some clues. They came to a house that had been destroyed not long ago. The walls of the house had collapsed and it was completely reduced to ruins. A cordon was set up around it. It looks like our target is still a strong man. The collapsed wall did not show any signs of explosion, it looked as if it had been directly hit by someone with great force. He can't be called a strong man, right? Hank glanced at Mu-En, his tone full of disbelief. This guy's strength is almost as strong as a demolition truck. Although his strength exceeded that of ordinary people, it was still not comparable to the strength of a demolition truck. He even suspected that the other party had directly driven the demolition truck to destroy the house. After showing their credentials, they walked into the ruins, looking for possible clues. Just as they were looking for clues, a violent explosion suddenly occurred in the next block. It seems that our target has come to work. Mu-En stopped and looked towards the place where the explosion came from. Since the target has appeared, they no longer need to look for clues. The three of them hurriedly ran to the next block. Along the way, many people screamed and fled the block, while some fearless guys walked towards the block out of curiosity, completely ignoring the police's persuasion. When Mu-En and his friends arrived, two guys, one tall and one short, who looked like biker gang members, were standing on the ruins and looking around. Looks like we found it. The two guys seemed to be enjoying themselves very much. The screams seemed like some beautiful music, which made them particularly intoxicated. He picked up two pieces of gravel from the ground and threw them hard at the two guys. Just as the rebel was about to approach them, the tall biker suddenly threw a punch, knocking the two flying stones away. Good reaction. Mu-En raised his eyebrows slightly, patted the backs of the two people beside him, and pushed them out. Now it's up to you to perform. Hank and Alex were pushed out by Moon without warning. They entered combat mode immediately, ready to fight the two bikers. The tall biker gang walked towards the two men, leaving cracks on the ground with every step he took. The guy flexed his wrists and approached the two men with a grim smile on his face. The short guy picked up a fist-sized stone from the ground and threw the stone at the two men with a standard baseball throwing posture. After going through Moon's test, Hank and Alex now keep Moon's teachings in mind. After seeing the flying stone, Alex reacted immediately. The energy device on his palm lit up instantly and shot a red energy shock at the flying stone. Boom! The flying rocks exploded instantly when hit by the energy shock, and the impact caused by the violent explosion turned into strong wind and spread in all directions. Energy blast? This ability is quite rare. Looking at the flying rocks that were shattered by the explosion, Mu-En was a little surprised. It was the first time he saw a mutant with this ability. This guy's ability was more low-key than Alex's, and it was more difficult to attract attention. Chapter 15. Combat. Seeing that the flying stone he threw was blocked by Alex, the guy grabbed a handful of gravel from the ground and injected energy into it. Now let's see how you defend. The rebel flew out of his hands and enveloped Alex. Faced with the oncoming explosion and debris, Alex did not dare to hesitate for a moment. He used both hands to release energy shocks at maximum power and swept towards the flying debris. Boom boom boom, the charged rebel was detonated, causing countless explosions in the air. This time Alex was not on the defensive. After dealing with the rebel, he aimed at the guy with both hands and released an energy shock. Faced with the red energy impact, the guy did not choose to defend, but instead pounced to the side, easily avoiding the incoming energy impact. And the moment he stood up, a large amount of rebel flew out again, colliding with Alex's energy impact, causing continuous explosions. The fight was going back and forth on Alex's side, but on Hank's side, it was a one-sided situation. Although Hank has a good grasp of fighting skills, facing this guy with absolute power, his strength is no different from that of a child. Faced with the opponent's attack, he could only choose to retreat. Fortunately, his ability made him much more maneuverable than the opponent. His flexible movements allowed him to easily avoid the powerful attack. Seeing Hank fighting, Moon was speechless. These two guys looked like they were just fooling around. One moves relatively slowly but its attacks are very powerful. Trampling or directly attacking can cause huge damage to the surrounding area. Although the other one was flexible, he could only circle around the opponent and constantly dodge the opponent's attacks, and could not cause any harm to the opponent at all. However, Mu-En also understood that this was the best choice Hank could make. His strength was not enough to compete with the opponent, so it was right to choose this way of dealing with the situation. We have to restrict his actions. Hank thought as he dodged the attack. Snort! The water pipe in the ruins broke and a large amount of water gushed out. Seeing the splashing water, an idea instantly emerged in his mind. I see. Hank was secretly delighted and turned around and rushed towards the broken water pipes. He planned to use these water pipes to get rid of this guy. Following his actions, the mutants chasing after him also chased him to this water-stained place. You can't escape. As he said that, the guy swung his fist again and hit the broken water pipe, breaking it completely. A large amount of water gushed out of the pipe, soaking his whole body. Ha! I didn't come here to hide. Hank looked at the other person sarcastically, picked up a wooden stick and picked up the exposed wires in the ruins into the water. The electric current instantly spread throughout the water, and the mutant, who was standing in the water with his whole body soaked, was trembling wildly in the electric current. His powerful strength was useless in the face of electric current and he could only stand in the water, his whole body twitching from the electric shock. Seeing that Hank had found a way to deal with his opponent, Moon nodded slightly. The opponent made good use of the environment. Just as he was thinking about it, the guy who was trembling all over due to the electric shock suddenly flew into the air and was out of contact with the water. If the opponent's body had not been twitching from time to time, Hank would have thought it was this guy's own ability, while Mu-En, who was watching the fight, saw the person who made the move. There were 3 young men who had just arrived. They were dressed the same as the 2 mutants, wearing leather jackets covered with rivets, like a biker gang. The one walking in front was the one who rescued the mutant. Looks like I need to move my body. These 2 guys will be left to Hank and Alex to deal with, while he will have to meet these 3 new guys. The moment Moon-En took action, the 3 newcomers took action one after another, using their respective abilities to attack Hank and Alex. A large amount of earth and rocks flew up from the ruins and hit Alex. Along with the earth and rocks, a large number of steel balls shot towards the 2 of them at a very fast speed. Seeing the attacks released by these guys, Mu-En understood that Alex could not withstand such attacks, and his energy impact could not destroy all these projectiles. With a flash, Mu-En appeared in front of the steel balls. His virtual energy field instantly unfolded, reflecting all the flying steel balls to other directions. Let's have some fun. As he spoke, Mu-En rushed towards the 3 people, whipping them with the devil's touch in his hand. The 3 people seemed calm and composed about the whip, as if they were not worried at all that it would hurt them. In fact, Mu-En's attack did not work. The whip did not hit them, but hit an invisible shield beside them. The ability of the last of the 3 guys was also revealed, which was a spherical transparent shield. This was also the reason why they were so fearless. So that's how it is, but you don't really think this thing can stop me, do you? The devil's touch was swung out again, and this time the long whip was attached with the power of the void, and it lashed at the 3 people fiercely. Slap! The long whip penetrated the shield and knocked down the mutant who was controlling objects with his mind. Ah! The guy let out a scream. Are you all right, Reed? The guy who threw the steel balls looked anxiously at Reed, who was knocked to the ground. He didn't understand why the long whip could penetrate the shield and injure Reed when the shield was clearly still there. Reed endured the pain and got up from the ground. My arm seems to be broken. The severe pain in his arm made him realize that this was not an illusion, but their shields were clearly still there, so why could the other party attack him? Rorschach, kill him! With a roar, Rorschach threw a large number of steel balls at Moon. His ability was kinetic acceleration, which could increase the basic speed of an object several times. This ability combined with the steel balls in his hands makes these steel balls have the speed of bullets, and a casual throw can have a power comparable to that of a shotgun. Facing Mu-En, whose strength was unknown, Luo Xia did not slack off at all and threw the steel ball at Mu-En with almost all his strength. The speed of the steel ball increased dramatically the moment it was thrown and shot towards Mu-En. However, imagination is full and reality is skinny. The moment those steel balls hit the virtual energy field, they were reflected back and embedded in the surrounding ground. Nice ability, but it's useless to me. Mu-En slowly walked towards the few people. These guys had very good abilities. If it were someone else, they might really have fallen into the gutter. Unfortunately, they were facing Mu-En who could suppress their power. Their abilities had no effect at all in front of Mu-En. As Mu-En approached, the transparent shield disappeared, and then the 3 of them discovered that their mutant abilities had also disappeared. Rorschach threw steel balls at Moon, but they just hit Moon's body. They did not have the speed to penetrate everything as before. The same happened to Reed. He stretched out his hand to control the objects on the ground to attack Moon, but nothing moved according to his will. Don't waste your energy. He kicked the three men to the ground, then Mu-En took out a rope and tied them up. Really? Can't you let me relax a little? Chapter 16. Murloc. The three struggled hard, but those who had lost their mutant abilities were unable to break free from the ropes. After one of them kicked him, Mu-En looked at Hank and the others. The battle on their side was also coming to an end. The power mutant was still twitching and foaming at the mouth, apparently having been electrocuted. However, the guy who could release energy explosions was forced to dodge continuously by Alex's energy shocks and had no chance to fight back. Hurry up and take care of them, we have to go somewhere else. Following Mu-En's voice, the two began to speed up. Alex waved the energy shock in his hand to drive the guy away, while Hank hid in the corner and watched the other party approaching. Just as the guy rushed over, Hank jumped up, grabbed a steel pipe in his hand and swept it towards the guy's knee joint. Thump! After a dull thud, the mutant fell to his knees and was pinned to the ground by Hank. Good performance. After praising the two of them, Mu-En tied up the remaining two guys, and the virtual energy field around him began to slowly expand, covering all of these guys. After they dealt with the rebellious mutants, a group of policemen rushed out with guns pointed. Stand still. Oh wow. Mu-En took out his ID and waved at the police. Don't be nervous, this is our ID. Seeing the ID card waving in Mu-En's hand, a policeman who looked like the team leader walked over cautiously and looked through their ID cards. CIA Special Operations Team. After returning the ID to Mu-En, the police asked, if I remember correctly, the CIA's scope of work should be overseas, right? The CIA is an external operations organization, while the FBI is an internal operations organization. How come CIA agents are now operating here? That's right, these guys have connections with people outside the country, so we have to arrest them. Mu-En's ability to tell lies has already reached the pinnacle, and his words, which combine truth and falsehood, make it impossible for them to distinguish between truth and falsehood. Looking at the policeman in front of him who was bowing his head in thought, Mu-En continued, our actions are approved. You can ask your superiors or verify it yourself. Can we leave now? The police nodded and made way for him. I heard that this situation also happens in other cities. It seems that many people have been bewitched. Mu-En waved his hand and dragged a few mutants outside. Hank, go rent a car, we have to go to the next city. It was inconvenient for Moon to move as he was leading several mutants, so he could only let Hank do it while he and Alex had to watch these guys. These captured mutants were still very angry and kept struggling, trying to escape from their restraints. But Mu-En was not so easy to provoke. Seeing them struggling, Mu-En raised the Devil's Touch and lashed at several people. Slap! The Devil's Touch was surrounded by electric currents, which caused them to twitch continuously while they were being knocked over. One of them was even knocked unconscious by the electric current. Looking at the twitching bodies of several people, Mu-En finally breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally quiet. Not long after, Hank arrived in a bus, which was the most suitable vehicle he had rented. He threw the still twitching guys into the bus, and they finally set off towards the next city. The long bumps and occasional electric shocks calmed down the unruly mutants. They all sat quietly in the car and followed Mu-En and the others to the new city. As soon as they entered the city, they noticed something was wrong. The atmosphere here was very solemn. Many people hid at home, and even when they walked on the street, they were extremely alert. Hank, ask what happened. As soon as the words fell, the bus stopped by the roadside and Hank jumped out and walked towards the pedestrians on the roadside. But the pedestrians didn't seem to want to interact with strangers. Hank tried several times but failed to strike up a conversation with them. Just when he was about to give up, an old voice sounded behind him. Are you asking for directions? Turning around, I saw an old man in a brown suit. Hello sir, I just want to ask what happened here. Why do I feel that the atmosphere here seems to be very nervous, right? The old man took over the conversation. Some monsters appeared here. Not only did they destroy the city, they also kidnapped many children. We are on guard against those monsters. Although he knew that there were mutants causing trouble here, Hank didn't expect the situation here to be so serious. After saying goodbye to the old man, Hank returned to the bus and told him everything he had learned. The mutants causing trouble here are much stronger than these 5 guys. At least they pose a greater threat to ordinary people. Let's go, let's find their whereabouts first. The bus started again and slowly moved through the city. The radio on the bus was also turned on to ensure that they could find the mutants as soon as possible. After crossing half the city, they finally received the broadcast message. A monster has appeared in the 16th block. Please evacuate as soon as possible. Haha, it looks like it's time for us to take action. The bus began to speed up and headed towards the 16th block mentioned in the broadcast. When they arrived at the target location, it had been destroyed beyond recognition. The fire hydrants on the roadside had been pulled out, and the water turned into a fountain, soaking the surroundings. And in the mist, there was a strange man who looked like a fish. He was bathing in the fountain and destroying things everywhere. The police around were constantly shooting, but the bullets were deflected to other places by the weirdo's slippery skin the moment they hit him. Alex, go and try it. He is just a fishman, although he is somewhat special, but there is no need for him to take action personally. Alex got off the bus, and the energy controllers in his hands suddenly lit up, and 2 red energy shocks shot towards the fishman. Such an attack scared the surrounding police, who thought it was another monster. However, after seeing the energy controllers in Alex's hands, they felt relieved. The police believed that the 2 red beams were products of technology, and that Alex used this technology to launch the attack. The red energy impact fell on the water curtain, the high temperature evaporated the water curtain, and the thick water vapor covered the fishman's body, making it impossible to see the situation in the water mist. Haha, you've done more harm than good. Muen laughed. Alex's ability was indeed powerful, but when facing the water curtain, not only did his ability fail to hit the opponent, it also limited his vision. Now the place was surrounded by thick water mist and he couldn't see the situation inside at all. Wow, I want to go home. Mom, I want to go home. A child's cry suddenly sounded, and Muen looked in the direction of the sound. The sound came from a house not far away. Chapter 17, Blade. The sound not only attracted Muen's attention, but also the surrounding police officers looked over. There was a sound of a child crying in this place, and no matter what it was, they had to go and check it out. Hank, you go and have a look too. After getting Moon's instructions, Hank walked towards the house. When he talked with the old man before, he already knew that many children in the city were abducted by mutants. He strongly suspected that the sound was made by the abducted children. Hank came to the side of the house with a group of policemen. In the policeman's surprised eyes, he jumped hard and easily jumped onto the balcony on the 2nd floor of the house. Unfortunately, the windows on the balcony were closed and even the curtains were drawn, so he couldn't see what was going on inside at all. Just as he was thinking about how to enter the house without alerting the people in the house, a burst of crying came from the house again. This time there was not one sound, but many crying sounds. They cried loudly and wanted to go home. That's right, even if these aren't mutants, they're a base for human traffickers. Hank did not hesitate and smashed the window with one punch. Seeing this, the police downstairs kicked the door open and rushed into the house. There were many children crying in the house, and a woman was standing in front of the children, looking at Hank who broke in through the window. Sure enough, he was discovered. The woman spoke softly, her body flashed slightly, and Hank flew out of the window as if he had been hit hard. Looking at Hank flying out, Moon seemed a little surprised. With the power Hank possessed, unless he was unable to react in time, even if he was not the opponent, he would not be knocked out like this. It seems that Hank's opponent is not easy either. As he was talking, a large number of policemen flew out of the house. They all fell to the ground groaning as if they had suffered a heavy blow. Interesting. This unknown guy aroused Muen's interest, and the mutants on the bus looked towards the room with anticipation, hoping that Muen would fight with the other party quickly, so that they could take the opportunity to escape. It's a pity that Muen did not take any action. Although he was very interested in the unknown mutant, he didn't want to let the 5 guys around him escape. His eyes were filled with void energy, and the whole world turned black and white in his eyes, but he could see clearly the special powers that existed in the mutants. Facing Muen's eyes, several mutants trembled. They felt as if their whole bodies were seen through. Just as Muen was observing the situation, the woman in the house came out. She looked at Hank who was crawling up from the ground and laughed disdainfully. The next moment, under the gaze of everyone, Hank seemed to be constantly attacked and was beaten back again and again. Everyone was stunned by this situation. They had no idea what was going on. They just saw the woman smile slightly, and then Hank kept backing away as if he was being beaten up. As the one who was beaten, Hank is no less confused than others. He could clearly feel himself being attacked by punch after punch, but he had no way to defend himself. The attacks seemed to come from everywhere, attacking him from all directions. Only Moon saw clearly that Hank was indeed attacked by that woman. A phantom rushed out of the woman's body and hit Hank almost instantly. After completing the attack, it instantly returned to the woman's body. Hank became like this because he was attacked continuously when the phantom kept rushing out. Bang bang bang! Some policemen recovered and started shooting at the woman, trying to kill this strange woman. But at the moment they opened fire, the woman appeared in front of Hank and easily avoided the police's shooting. This scene seemed a little incredible to many people, but Mu-En saw the woman's movement trajectory. She came to the position of the phantom at an incredibly fast speed. Mu-En had some vague guesses about the woman's abilities. The phantom she releases, in addition to being able to attack, should also have an accelerator-like effect, allowing her to move at high speeds within the phantom's trajectory. Now that he understood the other party's abilities, Mu-En naturally had a way to deal with him. He untied the war blade frisbee from the watch and pressed it lightly. The frisbee popped out of the sheath and extended a sharp blade. A force of the void was injected into the war blade. Let's see how you run this time. The battle blade was thrown out with great force and flew towards the woman at a high speed. Seeing the sword with a sharp blade flying towards her, the woman immediately entered the shadow to avoid the attack of the sword. This is what I've been waiting for. Mu-En smiled and snapped his fingers. Bang! Boom! A violent explosion spread out from the flying blade, blasting out the woman who was still moving in the shadow. This is Mu-En's method. The battle blade infused with the power of the void can release the power of the void in an explosive way. The energy explosion of the battle blade was not only extremely powerful, but also had the ability to suppress the power of the void, making it easy to deal with the woman. Looking at the sword flying towards Mu-En after the explosion, Hank realized that it was Mu-En who helped him. Without any hesitation, he rushed forward and pressed the woman to the ground. The woman still wanted to struggle, but after being injured by the explosion, her abilities had been temporarily sealed. Without any special abilities to rely on, how could she possibly be a match for Hank? Hank handcuffed her from behind with borrowed handcuffs and took her back to the bus. Hank's battle was over, and Alex's was also nearing the end. Although Alex couldn't see what was going on inside through the mist, this guy actually increased the output of the energy shock, using the energy shock to heat the water, causing the temperature of the evaporated water vapor to soar, making that place like a steamer. The extremely high temperature steam made it unbearable for the fishman. He felt like he was being steamed and eventually fell into a coma due to exhaustion. Soon after he fell, the energy shock output by Alex began to gradually weaken and dissipated in his hands. The long-term full-strength burst of energy has exhausted all the energy in his body, and now he is no different from an ordinary person. Although his ability is energy shock, he himself cannot create energy out of thin air. All the energy in his body comes from the light, heat, and even electromagnetic waves he absorbs from the surrounding areas. However, this was the first time that he had exhausted all the energy in his body, which made Alex look at his hands with some curiosity. This was a new and strange feeling that he had never experienced before. After a long time, the mist gradually dissipated, and through the water curtain everyone saw the fishman lying on the ground. The arrogant and destructive fishman before was now like a dead fish, lying on the ground motionless. Alex, arrest that guy. Moon looked at Hank again and said, "Go and explain to the police that we have to take these guys with us." Chapter 18. News. The negotiations with the police went very smoothly. After learning that Hank was a CIA agent, the police were very respectful. They also found the children who were kidnapped, which was definitely a great achievement. These rebellious mutants were handed over to professionals to deal with. After handcuffing the two mutants in the car, the three set out again and began looking for the mutants who were causing trouble. During their intensive search, they captured the rebellious mutants one by one. Before long, the bus Hank rented was filled with captured mutants. These mutants were all young, and most of them were just adults, the age when they are most impulsive. When they were first caught, they all wanted to resist, but after being beaten up by Mu-En, these guys all became obedient. Without mutant abilities, they are no different from ordinary people. Faced with the powerful Mu-En, they are simply powerless to resist. Soon Mu-En and others joined other teams and arrived at the CIA headquarters together. "Oh, it looks like things are going well over there." Mu-En greeted everyone with a smile. Behind Charles and the others followed a group of captured mutants. These mutants had good abilities, but facing the cooperation of Charles and Eric, and the assistance of Raven and Angel, these mutants didn't last long. It was even easier than the battle with Muen and the others. After all, Charles's ability was too tricky. He could forcibly control them by manipulating their minds. Only a few people were not controlled by Charles because of their special abilities. After sending these rebellious mutants to a special prison under the CIA, Charles called everyone over, even Imola from the CIA. "There is something I need to tell you." Charles looked at everyone seriously, making everyone take it seriously. It turned out that during the operation, Charles and his team encountered a mutant whose hands could release fire, and there were many mutants gathered around that guy. This was the most difficult battle they had encountered during the operation, and it took them a lot of effort to capture these mutants. However, Charles saw Xiao's figure from that guy's memory. This guy named Ron had met Xiao before and even joined Xiao's Hellfire Club. The reason why mutants have been wreaking havoc everywhere these days is that this guy obeyed Xiao's orders and gathered a group of mutants to wreak havoc everywhere. They even call it announcing to the world the existence of mutants, and that they want to overthrow human rule and establish a world ruled by mutants. Although their slogans sound good, they are actually relying on their mutant abilities to take revenge on humanity and the world. These people have been seriously affected, and each of them has gone crazy, with the aim of exacerbating world conflicts and triggering a worldwide war. Although he was very sad about what these fellows did, Charles also learned the location of the Hellfire Club from Ron's memory. Everyone knows that Xiao plans to cause a global nuclear war, but we have never been able to find where he is hiding and have no way to deal with him. This statement aroused everyone's agreement. If they could find where Xiao was hiding, they would not have to be as passive as they are now. Just as everyone was thinking about how to solve Xiao's problem, Charles changed the subject. "But I learned where Xiao and the others are from the memory of a mutant. They are hiding in Port St. Lucie now. I think that guy is still going on with his plan. We must stop him." As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere around him instantly exploded, and everyone clamored to go to Port St. Lucie to arrest Xiao and his men. Eric turned around and left. He couldn't wait any longer, he wanted to rush to Port St. Lucie to kill his enemies. Seeing Eric's actions, Charles hurriedly stopped him. "Wait, Eric. I know you want revenge, but we have to make a plan." "That's right," Imola also said, "and we just received news that foreign warships were spotted near the Caribbean Sea." The conference room fell silent in an instant. Everyone stared at Imola, trying to confirm the authenticity of the news from her. Only Muen rocked back and forth in his chair, showing no interest in the news at all. Although the current development is different from what is shown in the movie, it is just his own factor and cannot affect the Cold War between the two countries. As long as they could stop Xiao's actions, the war would not break out. After all, as a mutant who can absorb energy and release it, Xiao Ke is able to absorb nuclear energy. If he is not stopped, even if the leaders of the two countries remain rational, a nuclear war will break out between the two countries because of the nuclear energy released by this guy. That is to say, we have to split into two groups. One group will go to capture Xiao and his group, and the other group will go to the Caribbean to prevent the outbreak of war, right? Muen's voice rang out in the conference room, and he looked at Imola and Charles. "Logan and I are mercenaries. We can't do anything about the situation in the Caribbean, but leave the Hellfire Club to us. The Caribbean Sea is full of warships. Although he is proficient in individual combat, he has no way to exert his strength unless he can develop armor. Unfortunately, he has no idea about armor now." Moira had the same idea, so she only planned to take Charles and Eric to the Caribbean to stop the war, while the others would go to Port St. Lucie to deal with the Hellfire Club. Her plan was pretty good and could take both sides into consideration, but Eric did not agree with it. "My only target is Xiao, so I won't go to the Caribbean. This is his obsession. Xiao is the murderer of his mother, and he must avenge himself." Seeing that Eric refused to go to the Caribbean, Imola was about to speak, but Charles next to him directly agreed to his request. "It's fine if I'm alone, as long as the others can work with me. However," he stared at Eric, "after dealing with the Hellfire Club, you must work with me to stop the war." He knew very well that Eric would never let Xiao go, and he was not qualified to stop Eric from taking revenge. He only hoped that Eric could work with him to prevent the outbreak of war after dealing with the Hellfire Club. With Charles's support, Eric nodded slightly. As long as Xiao was dealt with, he wouldn't mind going to the Caribbean again to help Charles. Soon, the two teams were finally separated. One team is led by Charles, and its members include the highly mobile Sean and Angel, as well as the transformable Raven. They will go to the Caribbean with Imola to stop the war there. The other team is heading to Port St. Lucie, consisting of Moon, Logan, Eric, Darwin, Alex, and Hank. They want to destroy the Hellfire Club and capture Shaw and his men. Chapter 19. Dispatch. Because time was tight, everyone was divided into teams and then set off on their own planes. On the plane, everyone was preparing seriously. The situation they were going to face next was no longer a minor incident like before. They would be facing a real life and death crisis. In this slightly tense atmosphere, the plane soon landed in Port St. Lucie. Let's go and see if the Hellfire Club has any surprises. Muen chuckled and was the first to get off the plane. His relaxed look eased everyone's nervous mood. Their abilities may be slightly weaker, but this one's combat power is very strong, and Logan, codenamed Werewolf, also has strong combat power. Thinking of this, everyone was no longer nervous and walked towards the Hellfire Club together. Hellfire Club Red Devil, how is our plan going? Xiao asked, moving his arms. Although his arm has just recovered a little, it is enough for Xiao, and his ability will not be affected by the injury. Maybe he was moving too vigorously and he accidentally pulled the knife wound on his back. The severe pain made Xiao frown. That damn guy, if I see him again, I will definitely kill him. The severe pain reminded him of Muen. He would never forget this guy who had hurt him to such an extent. However, he was still a little afraid of Muen's abilities. He had always relied on his mutant abilities to get by, and now he suddenly encountered a guy who could ban their abilities. This forced them to treat it with caution. After all, no one wanted to experience the taste of failure. The plan is proceeding as usual, the warships over there are being deployed. The Red Devil replied that he had been to the Caribbean and knew the situation there better than anyone else. This made Xiao feel a little relieved. As long as he proceeded as usual, he would be able to start a new era soon. As he was speaking, a strange car suddenly appeared on the surveillance TV, and Eric's figure could be vaguely seen through the TV screen. Ha, those little guys are here. Then he turned to look at Jiliu on the side and said, let those newcomers play with them. His plan was about to be completed, and he was in no mood to play with these mutants now. Watching Jiliu using the communicator to notify the new members of the club, Xiao straightened his suit and walked down the stairs to the basement. The basement is connected to an underground river, and next to the underground river is a submarine. It's time to embrace our future. After saying that, Xiao climbed into the submarine. After the Red Devil and the Rapids also entered the submarine gradually sank and left here along the underground river. The so-called newcomers had no idea what was happening here. They walked out of the club one after another, looking at the oncoming vehicles with grim smiles on their faces. Oh no, it seems we are not very popular. Moonen raised his eyebrows and bumped into Logan, who was smoking a cigar beside him with a smile. The two of them had no worries at all about these guys. It didn't matter to them how strong these guys were. After all, they didn't have to worry about their own safety at all. Suddenly, a muscular man with bulging muscles rushed out and headed straight for the vehicle where everyone was. Everyone, come down. Boom. With a loud bang, the front of the car was smashed directly by that guy. Fortunately, Eric used magnetic force to stop the vehicle, which prevented a more serious accident from happening. After being hit by this guy, everyone jumped out of the car and used their respective abilities to rush towards the guy and the many mutants behind him. Even Muen was no exception, he also wanted to see what these guys were capable of. The power of the void flowed under his feet, he stomped on the ground, and instantly rushed towards a mutant. I'll come and play with you guys. As soon as he finished speaking, he threw a heavy punch at the guy. The power of this punch was so strong that the mutant could not stop retreating, and blood oozed directly from the place where he was attacked. Muen took a stance and attacked the guy again. This time, the mutant didn't hesitate at all. He immediately used his mutant ability and raised his legs to stomp on the ground. Dong dong dong! Heavy stones flew out from the ground and attacked Muen. This is a mutant who controls rocks, and the rocks crashed towards Moon under his control. Faced with these heavy rocks, Muen reached out his hand to his waist, and the energy blade instantly unfolded, chopping hard at the attacking rocks. Tisk tisk, all the flying stones were cut off by Muen's energy blade. The void power on the energy blade also isolated the stones, causing the guy to lose control of the stones. Mu-en was very fast and destroyed all the stones in a blink of an eye. The energy blade in his hand was also placed on the mutant's neck. His powerful fighting ability made the mutant break out in a cold sweat. After feeling the energy blade on his neck, this guy tactfully raised his hands in surrender. Although he longed for the life described by Xiao, he cherished his own life more and would not sacrifice his life for a slogan that had not yet been realized. Well, although he is a bit unethical, he is quite sensible. He is not like those guys before who just like to be beaten. Mu-en was very satisfied with this guy's tactful behavior, which made him feel more relaxed. Looking at the others, their performances were also good, with Eric and Alex's performances being the most outstanding among all. Relying on their own strong abilities, the two of them were able to surround a group of people. Faced with the two teaming up, many mutants didn't even have the thought of resisting. After all, the joint attack of these two guys is too dangerous. One controlled countless metals to surround them, while the other released rays that could melt the metal. No matter how reckless they were, they knew that this was not something they could resist. Looking at the others, except for Logan's 1 against 3, the battle between Hank and Darwin seemed mediocre. Hank still remembered the fighting skills and used them to fight his opponent, but Darwin completely turned into a reckless man and used his adaptability to fight head-on with the guy who overturned their vehicle. This was the first time Mu-en saw people fighting with their heads. The two of them didn't feel uncomfortable. They grabbed each other's arms and hit each other hard with their heads. Darwin, who turned into metal, rammed his metal head into the opponent, and the strong man also fought back with his headbutt with a grin. Even after everyone had defeated their opponents, the two men continued to headbutt each other, as if they would not stop until the other was knocked unconscious. "You two are addicted to this, aren't you?" Mu-en's voice rang in the ears of the two men, and then their abilities disappeared instantly, and they were kicked out by Mu-en. "Darwin, use your abilities wisely and don't be a reckless man, okay?" Shaking his head, Mu-en turned and walked towards the interior of the Hellfire Club. He wanted to meet Xiao and the others again. Chapter 20. The other side of Mu-en. As soon as he entered the club, fierce gunfire broke out. Countless bullets attacked Mu-en, determined to turn Mu-en into a honeycomb. Among these bullets, there are also many energy attacks, and several energy bombs are also attacking Mu-en. The mutants in the club stared at Mu-en, wanting to see how this guy was killed. Unfortunately, the result disappointed them. All the attacks were reflected after flying 2 meters in front of Mu-en. Countless ammunition attacks flew back and enveloped the mutants. Bang bang! Accompanied by countless noises, the club was destroyed beyond recognition by the flying ammunition, and some mutants were even injured or killed. But Mu-en seemed not to notice what was happening and searched around the club. "Come out, Xiao, didn't you say you were going to kill me?" He kicked open one door after another, but no matter how hard he looked, he could not find any trace of Xiao. But as he searched for Xiao's trace, there was a crackling sound behind him, followed by an arc of electricity falling on the nullifier field. Like those bullets, the electric arcs were reflected the moment they hit the virtual energy shield. Mu-en looked at the other party with interest. "Do you know where your boss is?" But what answered Mu-en was not words, but a new arc of electricity, which was once again bounced out by the null energy field and landed on a mutant who was lying on the ground groaning. "Looks like I have to ask." As soon as he finished speaking, Mu-en instantly appeared in front of the guy, turned around and gave him a roundhouse kick. After being hit hard, the guy let out a muffled groan. His ribs were broken directly by Mu-en's kick, and the expression on his face was distorted by the intense pain. Mu-en stepped on his body, squatted down and looked at the guy's face. "Can you tell me now where your boss is?" This guy still didn't answer. He stared at Mu-en with a sinister look and struggled to use his ability to attack. Mu-en was not polite to this uncooperative guy. He took out a pistol with a smile and put it on his palm. "I repeat, where is Xiao?" Seeing that the guy still didn't speak, Mu-en pulled the trigger and smashed his hand. Mu-en thought that the mutants here were the same as those outside, but he didn't expect that this guy was so loyal to Xiao. The muzzle of the gun was turned and placed against his elbow, and Mu-en looked at the guy with a smile. "Where is Xiao?" Before the guy could answer, he fired another shot, smashing the joint into pieces. "I forgot to tell you one thing. I really like those who talk big. It gives me a sense of accomplishment to get information from you guys." As he said this, he moved the muzzle of the gun upwards and pointed it at his shoulder. Just as he was about to shoot, the mutant being stepped on by Mu-En finally couldn't stand it anymore and screamed in pain. He is in the monitoring room. Although he wanted to follow Xiao, facing Mu-En's cold interrogation method, he couldn't help but reveal Xiao's location. Mu-En nodded with satisfaction, raised his hand and shot him in the head. That guy would no longer have to endure the pain. Eric and the others were all shocked when they saw Mu-En's cruel methods. It was the first time they saw Mu-En's cruel behavior. Only Logan was used to it. He knew Mu-En's creed clearly. Only dead enemies are good enemies. After killing the mutant, Mu-En walked towards the so-called monitoring room. There was no one in the monitoring room, but there was a passage leading to the underground on the ground. At this time, Eric and the others also rushed over and surrounded Mu-En, looking at the empty monitoring room. Bad news, Eric. Moon turned and looked at Eric. I guess they have escaped. The situation here is very clear. These mutants fighting with them are baits gathered by Xiao, while Xiao himself escaped through the underground passage. Eric found the situation here a little hard to accept. He finally found where Xiao was hiding, but that guy escaped. Eric, who didn't believe in evil, rushed into the underground passage, and seeing this, others also walked into the underground passage. After they went deep into the underground passage, they finally came to a vast underground space. In the center of the space was an underground river several meters wide. At this moment, Eric stood blankly in the empty underground space. He came here for revenge, but now he couldn't even see his enemy. Mu-En patted his shoulder and pointed at the dark river and said, "Guess where they are most likely to go if they leave from here?" This question made Eric's eyes light up. He might know where Xiao had gone. Thank you, I got it. He grabbed Mu-En's arm, thanked him repeatedly, then turned and ran outside. He must immediately meet up with Charles and fight against the approaching Xiao together with Charles. Everyone looked at the nervous Eric with confusion on their faces. They didn't know what Eric knew. Don't look at it, we have to leave, that guy Xiao is already heading towards the Caribbean Sea. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They really didn't expect that Xiao and the others were heading towards the Caribbean Sea. How did Mu-En and Eric know about it? Under everyone's curious gaze, Mu-En just smiled slightly, turned around and walked out of the underground passage. They all knew that Xiao's goal was to trigger a nuclear war, and the most likely thing to be triggered now was the situation in the Caribbean. The conflict between the two countries is increasing day by day, and Xiao is an important figure who instigates the conflict between the two countries. He will definitely go to the Caribbean now. Even if the two countries curb the idea of fighting, war will break out because of that guy's move. On the way to the Caribbean Sea, everyone finally understood why Xiao was in the Caribbean Sea from what Mu-En had said before. Charles and his men are there to stop the war, and if Xiao takes action between the two armies, a war that affects the entire world will be inevitable. Caribbean Sea. Charles and his companions were sitting on a plane flying over the Caribbean Sea, while below them the warships of the two countries were confronting each other on the sea. What happened to that ship? The pilot saw a freighter passing between the two armies, heading toward the border. Imola glanced at the radar, turned to Charles and said, "Stop that freighter. Once it crosses the border, the war will begin." Hearing this, Charles immediately closed his eyes and used all his mental abilities to search for the crew of the ship below. Soon his eyes lit up. He controlled a dying guy. Through that guy's eyes, Charles saw the owner of Mu-En's Devil's Touch, a red devil with red skin. This guy's vigilance was beyond his imagination. As soon as he controlled the dying crew member, he was discovered by the red devil, who kicked the crew member to death. The crew of the ship below is all dead, but I only saw the red devil, the others were not on the ship. Chapter 21. Confrontation. No one else here, everyone else on the plane was stunned. If it wasn't on this ship, then where would it be? Raven, remember the first time we met Eric? Charles's reminder made Raven realize that the first time they met Eric was on the sea. Eric originally wanted to assassinate Xiao, but ended up watching Xiao leave on a submarine. You mean, Xiao and the others are in the submarine? Then Eric would be in vain. Everyone knows that there is a deep hatred between Eric and Shaw. Even when Imola asked Eric to come to the Caribbean together, he refused. He wanted revenge and wanted to kill Xiao. But now Eric's enemies appeared on their side, which meant that the Hellfire Club was just a cover and this was the real battlefield. It's too late to say this now. We must be prepared to fight those guys. The ship below is speeding up. Imola exclaimed. Once the freighter below crosses the border, missiles from American warships will be launched to destroy the freighter, which will also cause a war between the two countries. Charles did not hesitate at all and used his ability again to control the opposing warship. He knew very well that only if the other side destroyed their own freighters could the outbreak of war be prevented. Using his psychic ability, a lieutenant on a warship walked to the missile controller, aimed at the freighter and pressed the launch button. With a loud bang on the warship, under the watchful eyes of everyone, a missile drew a white line in the air and directly hit the freighter. Boom! Seeing the situation of the freighter through telescopes, the generals on both sides were all stunned. On the one hand, it was hard to believe that the other party would directly sink the freighter in order to stop it from moving forward. On the other hand, he looked at the guy who launched the missile. "Congratulations, you prevented a war!" The general roared, "Lock him up!" The adjutant who launched the missile had a confused look on his face. He had no memory of what had just happened. On the exploded freighter, the Red Devil turned around, looked at the flames from the explosion, cursed inwardly, and his body instantly disappeared in a puff of red smoke. In the deep sea, a nuclear submarine is heading towards the Caribbean Sea. Inside the submarine, Xiao is sitting on the sofa, shaking his wine glass, waiting for the news of the war. The appearance of the Red Devil surprised Xiao and Julia very much. According to the time calculation, the Red Devil should be driving the freighter across the border. How could he suddenly return to the submarine? Under the gaze of the two, the Red Devil explained, "The Americans are playing tricks. The guy with psychic abilities must have controlled the people on the Soviet warship. The freighter was blown up by its own missiles." When these words came out, Xiao and Julia were extremely surprised. Aren't those mutants supposed to be in the Hellfire Club? How come they were here? Xiao was silent for a while and looked at the two of them. "Speed up and enter the Caribbean Sea. Since those guys want to stop the war, let's start the war before they do." After saying that, Xiao walked towards the power room of the submarine. Since both sides were so restrained, he would personally let the nuclear war break out. The submarine under the ocean began to speed up and rushed towards the Caribbean Sea. What they didn't know was that a plane had already taken off from Port St. Lucie and was heading towards the Caribbean Sea. "Relax, Hank, and you, Eric, we will definitely get there, but I can't guarantee whether Xiao will die in your hands." Although Xiao is Eric's enemy, he will never give up killing Xiao if the time is right. Eric nodded slightly to Muen's words. From his performance in the Hellfire Club just now, he already understood how decisive Muen was in attacking the enemy. He could chase and kill Xiao, but if Xiao was caught by Muen would never leave him the chance to kill Xiao. The atmosphere on the plane was extremely tense. Many people were holding on to their seats tightly. Only Logan was playing with his lighter out of boredom. He wanted to smoke a cigar, but a battle was about to begin, and moreover, it was on the sea. He didn't want to get his high-quality cigar wet. After flying in the air for a while, they finally received the wireless signal from Charles and his team. "Charles? I'm Hank." Hank turned on the radio and contacted Charles and the others to confirm their situation. "ZZ. I'm Moira, where are you guys?" Charles was using his abilities to maintain the balance between the two countries as much as possible and had no time to answer Hank, so he had to leave it to Moira to respond. Hank breathed a sigh of relief when he heard the voice on the radio. "We are on our way. There is something you must pay attention to." Hank glanced at Eric who was sitting next to him and said, "Xiao is not in the Hellfire Club. There are only a group of cannon fodder he left there. They took a submarine to the Caribbean Sea." Hank wanted to remind Charles and the others to be on guard. After all, Xiao's abilities were obvious to all. "We know that Charles just saw the Red Devil." Moira also gave an answer. Although Hank's message came a little late, it was at least a message. Hank stopped talking and controlled the plane to speed up and fly towards Charles and the others. Charles was also using his psychic powers to balance the emotions of the generals of the two countries while searching for Xiao's whereabouts. "No, I can't find them, but I'm sure they must be nearby." "Imola, what did you find over there?" "No." Imola glanced at the radar, shook his head and said, "There is nothing abnormal on the radar. Maybe they are underwater. It's a pity that there is no sonar on the plane." There was silence on the plane for a moment, and Sean looked at everyone. "No, we do. With the power of sound waves, he is a living sonar." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone on the plane took action, and Charles took Sean to the tail of the plane. "Take a deep breath," Charles said loudly, "remember, this is a muscle, and you can control it." As the cabin slowly opened, Charles patted Sean on the shoulder and shouted, see you later. As soon as he finished speaking, Sean jumped down, spread his limbs, and a layer of impenetrable wing membrane appeared on his limbs, allowing him to glide at a high speed in the air. Just as he was about to approach the sea surface, a sound wave with a strong impact spread out from his mouth, and he took advantage of the strong sound wave impact to slow down his speed and dived into the sea. After entering the sea, Sean opened his mouth again and released strong sound waves, which spread wildly in the ocean and constantly gave feedback to him. Finally, Sean found the location of the submarine in one direction, and Charles, who had been sharing his psychic abilities with Sean, also got the specific location of the submarine. The siren has been found. Notify everyone to take action. Chapter 22. Breaking out of the sea. Sean used his sound waves to lock onto the submarine where Xiao and his crew were. While in the submarine, the sonar instrument emitted a sharp sound, causing the person monitoring the sonar to cover his ears, and everyone else also heard the piercing sound. They found us. Don't worry about them. As long as Xiao completely absorbs the nuclear energy, no one will be our opponent. The Red Devil looked grimly at the instrument in front of him and increased the energy output of the power cabin to the maximum. Xiao came to the power cabin, held the nuclear fuel rods tightly in both hands, and absorbed the nuclear energy with all his strength. Nuclear energy began to flow into his body frantically, and his body began to age continuously the moment the nuclear energy flowed in. As for Charles and his team, after they found the submarine, a difficult problem arose before them. They had no way to pull the submarine out of the deep sea. Moreover, Charles did not want the warships of the two countries to intervene, because once both sides opened fire, it would eventually turn into a war, unless Eric showed up. Thinking of this, Charles grabbed the radio and said loudly, "Hank! Can you hear me, Hank? Now if we want to pull the submarine out, we must rely on Eric's ability and let Eric use magnetism to drag the submarine out of the deep sea." "Roger that. What happened, Charles?" Hank controlled the plane to fly rapidly, and the shadow of the ship appeared faintly on the radar. "We found Shaw's location, and we need Eric's help here." Hearing this, Hank and Eric looked at each other, and Eric quickly picked up the radio and said, "We're almost there." "Where is he?" As soon as he finished speaking, Charles's mental power spread out and quickly locked onto his position, and Charles's voice also sounded in his mind. "Xiao's location is not too far from you, just over there." Following Charles's instructions, Eric looked out the window at the calm sea. "Leave it to me. Hank, open the cabin." Eric was extremely excited. He could finally go meet the nightmare that existed in his heart, and this time he was determined to kill the other person. Looking at Eric walking to the tail of the plane, Muen stood up and walked over with interest. "What do you want to do?" "Fish here." Eric was stunned for a moment, then nodded slightly and said, "Yes, catch a big fish." The cabin was slowly opened, and the sea water below was rapidly receding. Just after Hank opened the landing gear, Eric jumped on without any hesitation. He was seen holding the landing gear tightly and opening his palms towards the sea. He could already feel the huge metal sailing in the sea. That was the submarine Xiao was on. Eric tried his best to mobilize his strength and make his power burst out continuously, trying to drag the submarine sailing in the ocean out of the water. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't pull the submarine out of the ocean. "Keep your heart calm and don't let anger overwhelm you." Moon sat at the cabin door, looking at the ferocious-looking Eric and reminded him that this guy's hatred for Xiao was beyond words, and it would be difficult to control his abilities. Charles's voice also rang in Eric's mind. "Find the point of anger and calm." After hearing what the two said, Eric took a deep breath, calmed the desire for revenge that was surging in his heart, and began to concentrate on using his magnetism. This time his ability received very good feedback. The submarine that was still sailing was towed by him using magnetism and could not move in the deep sea. As he continued to operate, a pair of huge metal propellers broke through the sea surface and emerged from the water. This scene was seen by many people, even the generals of the two countries' warships who were on guard against the enemy saw it through telescopes. OMG! Everyone on the warship was shocked by this scene. They actually saw a submarine flying from the sea to the sky, chasing an airplane. Compared to these people's shock, Jiliu climbed out of the submarine, and a violent storm appeared around him. The moment the storm was gathered to be strong enough, Jiliu released the storm towards the plane, and he himself hid back in the submarine. The storm grew bigger and bigger, causing huge waves on the sea. Even the plane that Muen and his companions were on was affected by the storm. The fuselage was damaged and began to disintegrate. "Everyone, hurry up!" Hank let out a roar, trying to keep the plane stable. However, the disintegrating plane could not hold out for long, so Hank had no choice but to fly the plane to the nearest island. The out-of-control plane caused Eric's control over the submarine to rapidly decline. As the plane broke out of the storm and flew towards the island, Eric desperately used his abilities to bring the submarine to the island. The submarine crashed heavily into the island, and many parts of it were broken. Muen and his team's plane even rushed directly onto the beach and broke into two sections on the beach. "Do not!" Charles shouted excitedly, and the plane that Muen and the others were on crashed right in front of him. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He put his hand on his temple and carefully felt the situation of Muen and the others. "Eric, Hank, how are you guys doing?" "We're fine." Eric stumbled to his feet from the wreckage of the plane, gasping for breath as he spoke. At the moment when the plane was about to crash, he used his ability to slow down the speed of the crash, and now everyone is fine. Of course, this does not include Logan. At this time, Logan was stabbed through the stomach by the wreckage of the plane, and the blood had dyed Logan's whole body red. It turned out that when the plane crashed, Logan used his body to block the sharp wreckage in order to protect others. The others who received his help mostly only suffered scratches, but Logan was pierced through the body by the debris. Ugh! Although he was used to pain, it was the first time for Logan to experience the pain of his entire body being torn apart. He pulled the debris off his body, and in front of everyone's shocked gazes, the wounds on his body healed in the blink of an eye. Although they knew that Logan had a strong self-healing ability, the injuries on Logan's body were all fatal, and he could heal so quickly, which opened everyone's eyes. "Your self-healing ability is still as abnormal as ever." Looking at Logan who had fully recovered, Muen couldn't help but complain. He was very envious of Logan's abilities. After all, although he could block many attacks, once injured, his self-healing ability was no different from that of an ordinary person. Logan shrugged, took out a cigar and lit it. "Now it's our turn." Everyone walked out of the wreckage of the plane, and opposite them were Riptide and Red Devil, and next to them stood a few guys they had never seen before. "It seems that Xiao has recruited a lot of mutants." Muen stretched his neck and said while looking at the guys in front of him. "There are too many mutants who choose to follow Xiao's footsteps, including those mutants who are causing chaos, those met in the Hellfire Club, and these guys in front of him. If Xiao is given more time, this guy's plan might really succeed." Chapter 23. Battle. "Isn't this just what you want?" Logan teased and snapped his fingers, making a crackling sound, and sharp bone claws slowly grew out from between his bones. As the two talked, other people also came out of the cabin, and in the sky, Sean and Angel also flew towards them. Opposite them, Jiliu, Red Devil and others were also ready for battle, and two whirlwinds were condensing in Jiliu's hands. "Then, let's go!" Accompanied by Muen's loud shout, he rushed out instantly, with two pistols in his hands constantly spewing gunpowder. Bang bang bang! Bullets containing the power of the void flew towards Jiliu and the others. Defense. Facing the bullets shot by Muen, Jiliu and Red Devil, who had suffered great losses before, loudly warned everyone around them. A strong mutant with crocodile skin grabbed the steel plate that fell from the submarine behind him and stood in front of everyone. Ding ding ding! The bullet hit the steel plate, making a crisp sound, and a faint dent appeared on the thick steel plate. After blocking Muen's attack, the Red Devil grabbed a few people around him, suddenly disappeared in the smoke, and appeared behind Muen and the others. This did not stop Moon, and he threw the Devil's Touch at Darwin. "Deal with them." Darwin nodded, grabbed the handle of the whip and pressed it lightly. The whip suddenly seemed to come alive, carrying a strong electric current, and whipped the Red Devil and the others according to his thoughts. Alex also stopped, and fully activated the energy controllers in his hands. Two red energy shocks attacked the people behind him. Facing the attack from the two, a mutant stomped hard on the beach beneath his feet, and the surrounding gravel turned into a sand wall blocking them. Although the sand wall can block energy shocks, this is only temporary after all. Under Alex's energy shock, the sand wall quickly melted where it was attacked. "Kill them!" The Red Devil shouted loudly, and instantly appeared behind Alex, swinging the sharp blade in his hand and slashing downwards. Boom! With a muffled sound, the Red Devil staggered and disappeared from behind Alex. After he disappeared, Hank walked up and tapped Alex on the shoulder. "Keep attacking, leave the rest to me." After hearing Hank's words, Alex began to attack with all his strength. The huge energy output quickly melted the thick sand wall, and he attacked the mutants behind the sand wall again. Muen and his men also came into contact with Jiliu and his men, and started fighting. Jiliu did not choose to fight with Muen. He released a terrifying storm to wrap the submarine, protecting Xiao in the submarine while using the strong wind to attack everyone. The rapids hiding in the dark made Muen very helpless. Although his bullets could penetrate the storm, they could not blow up the submarine. Once that guy hid, he really couldn't do anything to him and could only deal with the mutant in front of him first. The mutant in front of him looked no different from a normal person, except that there were just too many of them. There were more than a dozen identical mutants surrounding him, each holding a rifle and aiming at Moon. "I'm surrounded." Muen laughed, not caring about the threat posed by the guns. "What a pity, you can't hit me at all." As soon as he finished speaking, he flashed in front of one of them and kicked him away, while his pistol kept firing at the other clones. Da-da-da! As Muen took action, these clones also opened fire, and the bullets formed a dense firepower network, trying to kill Muen. Unfortunately, this guy still lacked some combat experience, and coupled with the bullets with void power shot by Muen, all the clones that were hit dissipated and turned into smoke and returned to the main body. Muen himself was covered by the void power and disappeared from the sight of those guys. Laugh, 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 accompanied by the sound of flesh being cut, a glowing energy blade appeared in Muen's hand, which beheaded all the remaining clones. The disappearance of the clone caused the guy's real body to suffer a lot. His body twitched and he kept wailing. "Honestly, your abilities are pretty good, it's a pity you're too weak." As he spoke, Muen swung the energy blade and cut off the guy's head. "Now." Looking at the fierce storm, Muen grinned, "It's your turn." The power of the void surged under his feet, making him shoot into the storm like a cannonball. The storm did not shake Muen at all. Muen easily penetrated the storm and came to the front of the submarine. He was standing in front of the submarine's hatch, controlling the storm's torrents. The moment he saw Muen passing through the storm, he hid in the submarine. He was very clear that his ability had no effect on Muen, but Muen could easily kill him. Through the cracks in the submarine, the torrent once again caused the storm. Although his ability is ineffective against Muen, some things affected by the ability are still useful to Muen, like the stone he launched last time using his ability. One by one, whirlwinds only a dozen meters in size appeared, sweeping up a large amount of sand and gravel and attacking Muen. Although the destructive power of sand and gravel is not as strong as the mutant ability, the damage it causes cannot be underestimated. Looking at the sand and gravel blown up by several whirlwinds, Muen did not choose to resist, but disappeared directly from the spot. "It looks like you still have some brains, but you're really too weak." Muen suddenly appeared next to the submarine and slashed at the submarine several times with the energy blade in his hand. The thick submarine steel plate was unable to stop Muen's steps and was easily broken by the energy blade, revealing a passage for entry. The rapids in the submarine looked at Muen in shock, and he rolled up the surrounding metal and launched it towards Muen. Faced with these attacks, Muen flashed, dodged the attacks, and came in front of him. And because of the effect of the virtual energy stand, the moment Muen approached him, his ability was suppressed and the rolling storm around him dissipated. Muen grabbed Jiliu's neck with one hand and lifted him up. He smiled and threw him aside. The sharp metal of the broken submarine pierced his body, and a steel bar even went through his chest. "Ha!" With a mocking look at the dying Jiliu, Muen had no interest in killing him and walked straight into the submarine. After seeing the storm dissipate, Eric and his companions rushed into the submarine and saw the dying rapids and the devastation. "Xiao must be in there." As soon as Eric finished speaking, the submarine was split into two by a huge force and Xiao and Muen appeared in front of everyone. In Xiao's hand, he was holding a long metal stick and looking at Muen with a wary look. "You are the most threatening person I have ever met." Over the years, Xiao has seen many mutant abilities, but only Muen's ability is aimed at mutants. This is a terrible enemy. But you are the first one to escape from me. Chapter 24. Die together. Muen grinned, and a disc flew out of his hand, ejecting its scabbard and blade as it flew, transforming into a battle blade. The power of the void was also surging under his feet, and he swung the energy blade towards Xiao. Dang! Facing Muen's flying blade, Xiao did not dare to be careless at all. He swung the metal stick in his hand and knocked the blade away. At the moment the blade flew back, Xiao also saw the marks left by the blade on the metal stick. Those were marks left by extremely fast cutting. Seeing the marks on the metal stick, Xiao couldn't help but take a breath. His defense was indeed correct. If he hadn't used the stick to defend himself, with Mu N's ability, that frisbee-like weapon would definitely have taken his life. However, Xiao also has a way to deal with Mu N's ability. The nuclear energy he absorbs is not only to trigger a nuclear war, but also to deal with Mu N, a powerful enemy. Nuclear energy spread throughout his body, and the metal stick in his hand also emitted a faint blue light. Go to hell! Accompanied by Xiao's roar, the metal stick drew a blue trajectory in the air and swept towards Mu N. The enormous force instantly created a strong wind, letting everyone understand his determination to kill Mu N. Is this the power you use to absorb nuclear energy? The energy blade in Mu N's hand glowed brightly. How about trying my attack? Chi chi chi! The energy blade swung several times, and the sharp energy blade cut the long stick that swept across into several pieces. At the moment of the last swing of the sword, a sword energy condensed from energy flew out from the energy blade. At the same time, the battle blade that flew back into his hand was thrown out again and continued to kill Xiao. Facing Mu N's continuous attacks, Xiao acted quickly, bent his legs and exerted force, causing the ground to cave in under his feet, and he jumped up to avoid the attacks. After seeing Xiao jumping into the air, Eric finally couldn't help it. He used his hands to control countless submarine wreckages and rushed towards Xiao. A large amount of metal burst in Xiao's direction, completely submerging him. But for Xiao, who has the ability to absorb energy, these attacks have no effect on him at all. Looking at the metal that was bursting towards him, Xiao threw a punch fiercely. The huge force landed on the incoming metal, and Eric's attack was instantly dispersed. At the moment of blasting the metal wreckage apart, Xiao also grabbed a few steel bars and used his powerful strength absorbed from nuclear energy to throw the steel bars like spears towards Mu N. The moment the steel bar slipped out of his hand, it shot towards Mu N like a cannonball. The power released by Xiao after absorbing the nuclear energy was extremely powerful. Facing such a strong force, even Mu N's virtual energy stance could not stop it. Mu N had to wrap his whole body with the power of the void and move to another place. Boom! 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 One by one, the steel bars fell to the ground, and with their terrifying kinetic energy, they created deep pits on the ground. Such an attack made everyone retreat again and again. This was no longer an enemy they could face. Even Eric had to admit that compared with Xiao's strength, he was really too weak. The dying Jiliu, after seeing the destruction caused by Xiao, showed a faint smile on his face. He raised his hand with difficulty, and a weak whirlwind condensed in his palm. Laugh! 3 bone claws pierced his chest, and as the claws were slowly pulled out, blood continued to flow out. We're all going to die, so stop moving. Logan wiped the blood off his hands and said while holding a cigar. This guy is indeed Xiao's subordinate. He is almost dead, but he is still so loyal. Because his heart and lungs were torn apart by Logan's bone claws, Jiliu finally died, and his body was hung on the wreckage of the submarine. Jiliu died, and the Red Devils on the other side were not in a good situation either. They could have suppressed Alex and the others, but after Sean and Angel arrived, their situation became very delicate. They don't have Xiao's abilities, so facing the long-range attacks from Sean and the others, they can only try their best to resist. However, after seeing the attack released by Xiao, the morale of the Red Devils boosted and they launched a counterattack against Alex and his men. They were fighting back and forth, but Mu N was in a stalemate. No matter how Mu N attacked, Xiao would always keep a safe distance from him. Having suffered losses, Xiao would rather have a medium-range battle with Mu N than let Mu N get close to him. At this moment, Xiao was like a human turret, with all kinds of things flying out of his hands and shooting towards Mu N. With the blessing of nuclear energy, everything flying out of his hands carries an extremely powerful force, and even a slight bump can smash that place to pieces. Mu N was also very helpless about this. He had no way of blocking destruction of this scale and could only use the power of the void to keep dodging. After catching the flying blade again, Mu N planned to end this battle, which was like defending a carrot. The power of void poured into the blade, and he planned to blow that guy Xiao out. The battle blade flew out of his hand and flew towards Xiao at a rapid speed. Mu N himself released the power of the void with all his strength, swinging the sword at Xiao continuously, and streams of energy and sword energy burst out. He was surrounded by countless sword energies and rushed towards Xiao. All the objects thrown by Xiao were chopped into pieces by the energy sword energy. Seeing Mu En's actions, Xiao's attacks became more frequent. The moment he used the steel bar to hit the flying blade, the blade that was supposed to fly back exploded instantly. A stream of void energy instantly spread out and turned into a sphere that enveloped Xiao. The moment his ability was suppressed, Xiao was blown away by the strong impact released by the explosion. Before he landed, the energy blade pierced his heart. Looks like I won. Mu En held the sword in one hand and stood in front of Xiao. Xiao looked down at his chest, his legs softened and he knelt on the ground, then turned to look at Eric. I'm sorry about what happened 20 years ago, but everything I did, was for. End of conversation. Before the guy could finish his words, Mu En swung the energy blade to cut off his neck, and Xiao's head fell off his neck. But at the moment of killing Xiao, a bad feeling spread wildly in his heart. Everyone run! Mu En yelled at everyone, and his whole body was covered with void energy, and he fled in other directions. The moment he moved, Xiao's body behind him suddenly began to swell, causing a horrific explosion. It's all over now. Mu En's body was instantly swallowed up by the horrific explosion, and his entire body was destroyed in the explosion. It turned out that Xiao had already prepared for failure, as he had a bomb connected to his heart. Once he dies, the bomb will be detonated, and his body that has absorbed nuclear energy will turn into a small nuclear bomb, and the people around him will be buried with him. Although it was only a small nuclear bomb, its power was absolutely guaranteed. The horrific explosion would instantly destroy Mu En. Even the void energy covering Mu En's body could not stop it in the slightest. However, at the moment Mu En was killed, a powerful void energy suddenly erupted, enveloping the horrific explosion. Chapter 25. Rebirth. The void energy will wrap around the explosion, continuously shrinking, and finally disappearing completely. Everyone stared blankly at the traces left by the explosion. The bad-tempered guy who taught them how to fight actually disappeared along with the explosion. And at the last moment, he wiped out the entire explosion and successfully protected them. Oh, didn't you say you were going to retire? Ron clenched his hands tightly. He and Mu En had known each other for 3 years. He did not expect that in this last mission, Mu En would die together with the enemy. Everyone was silent, even the mutants who followed Xiao stopped and looked quietly at the huge pit caused by the explosion. Void dimension and energy bubble floated in the void, and as time passed, countless meridians and blood vessels gradually emerged. The void energy circulated in the meridians and blood vessels, and as the meridians and blood vessels continued to grow stronger, it gradually condensed into a human shape. RIS. A deep voice came from the human figure, and countless void energies gathered around the human figure's meridians to form a vortex. LOHK. Gradually, the human figure condensed from the void became more and more real, and one could even see his appearance. XATA. After the last voice was heard, the human form was completely formed. It was Mu En who was blown to pieces. Although his body was destroyed by the explosion caused by Xiao's death, his spirit came to the void dimension and kept floating there. Accompanied by the sound of void secrets, Mu En finally opened his eyes and woke up in the void dimension. Where am I? Looking at the nothingness around him, Mu En seemed a little confused. Suddenly, his head began to ache, and different images emerged in his mind. Void energy burst out from his body, disturbing the surrounding void. Ziku. A strange sound came out of Mu En's mouth, countless void energies gathered towards him, and he himself was also changing. The flesh and blood on his body gradually dissipated, and his body turned into a skeleton wrapped by energy blood vessels, while the void energy that gathered towards him gathered on his body into a broken armor. After all this was over, Mu En looked down at his broken hands, and a name emerged in his mind. Ziku, Resonance of the Void. Is this my armor? The appearance of the armor caught Mu En off guard. Before he could figure out where this place was, he got his own armor. Although the void echo looks tattered, Mu En is very clear about the combat power of this armor. Once this armor goes onto the battlefield, it will definitely become the enemy's nightmare. What the hell is going on? Wasn't I killed in the explosion? How did I get reborn in this place? And I got the void reverberation. Questions kept popping up in Mu En's mind. He didn't understand what happened after he was killed. Suddenly, his head began to ache again, but this time it was much lighter. The scene that flashed through his mind before reappeared. Is this the way to shape the armor? Seeing the content of the picture, Mu-en was stunned. He was shocked by the way the armor was shaped. Except for the void reverb, which was created based on himself and the explosion, in order to create other warframes, one must obtain the essence of I. Although Mu-en had tried to obtain I essence through game missions before traveling through time, that was just a game after all. There were no game missions in reality that allowed him to obtain I essence. Does that mean he can only use this one set of armor in the future? Just when he thought he could only use the void reverberation, the picture in his mind suddenly changed, and the method of obtaining I essence appeared in his mind. It turns out that the I essence is produced by absorbing some powerful forces and fusing them with its own void energy, and can be used to create many powerful items. If Mu-en wants to create a new armor, he must obtain various items of powerful strength and use the void energy to extract the essence of I from them. Although it only takes 4 I essences to complete the creation of a battle armor, it is still a huge challenge for Mu-en. After all, he really doesn't know where to find so many powerful items. It seems that I will be busy in the future, but I don't know where this place is. Looking at the empty environment around him, Mu-en looked around curiously. He always felt very familiar with this place. After changing back into human form, Mu-en floated in the void dimension, checking the situation around him. I feel like this place is very familiar. Wait. Mu-en seemed to have thought of something, and the power of the void in his hands quickly gathered together. Sure enough, this is the void dimension. He has always drawn knowledge and power from the void dimension, but this is his first time stepping into the void dimension. It turns out that this place is so empty and lifeless. Haha, no wonder I didn't die, it turns out I became the void demon in the game. He is closely connected to the void dimension and now possesses the same abilities as in the game. In addition to being able to use the power of the void to fight and become invisible, he also gains abilities such as soul transfer and void sprint mastered by game characters. Oh, this is really interesting. Until now, he has not been able to master the ability of transferring souls and transmitting consciousness. He did not expect that he would gain so many benefits by dying together with that guy Xiao. Not only did he gain more powerful void abilities, but he also got the armor he had always dreamed of, which made him extremely excited. After experiencing the abilities and armor for a while, Mu-en finally turned his attention to the void around him. By the way, even though I'm reborn, how can I leave? Although rebirth is something worth celebrating, we can't be trapped here forever, right? Just as he was thinking carefully about how to leave here, some inexplicable knowledge appeared in his mind. This was passed to him by the void dimension, telling him how to enter and exit the void dimension freely. Using the power of the void to open a rift? Isn't this the ability of Limbo? Mu-en thought about it carefully and said, yes, Limbo can travel through different spaces. It seems that traveling through the void dimension is not that difficult for him. Having said that, Ling Baiyu is a battle armor after all, and he cannot guarantee that he can reach the level of a battle armor. According to the method given by the void dimension, Mu-en frantically gathered the power of the void in his hands. As the power of the void continued to grow stronger, he waved his hands to shoot the power of the void in his hands out. The two groups of void power collided fiercely with each other, causing a violent explosion. A circular gap appeared in front of him. On the opposite side of the gap were sparkling waves. It seems it worked. Looking at the waves on the other side of the gap, Mu-en walked through the gap without any hesitation and walked onto the beach. Feeling the blowing sea breeze and listening to the sound of the waves, Mu-en closed his eyes slightly and took a deep breath. Finally home. I went to get vaccinated in the afternoon, it was a bit late. Chapter 26. Crash. Glancing at the surrounding situation, Mu-en was surprised to find that he did not seem to have returned to the place where he was killed in the explosion. Not to mention the metal wreckage of the submarine, there are not even any coconut trees on the beach. This is not a beach at all, it is clearly a huge lake. Am I going the wrong way? Looking at the surrounding environment, this place is surrounded by mountains with lush trees, and in the middle is a huge lake. But he didn't think too much about it. Anyway, he had already returned, and the most important thing now was to get out of the mountains and find Charles to settle the commission. 500,000 was not a small amount of money, and he was going to use the money to buy a farm. Just as I was about to leave, there was a sudden roar above my head. Looking up, I saw a fighter plane with thick smoke billowing down from the sky. I didn't expect that the plane I was on before I died crashed due to a turbulent storm, and I saw a crashed fighter jet right after I came back. Watching the fighter jet descending from the sky, slightly raising its head in the air, gliding at high speed on the lake, and finally rushing onto the beach not far away, Mu-En immediately ran over. Since it is a fighter jet, there must be a communicator on it. No matter what the situation of the pilot inside is, at least he can use the fighter jet's communicator to contact the person on the other side of the communicator. In this way, he only needs to wait here for rescue and doesn't have to waste energy looking for a way out. As soon as he approached the wreckage of the fighter plane, he saw 2 women inside, to be exact, 2 female pilots in the wreckage of the plane. And in the communicator, an anxious voice kept coming. "Carol! Carol! Can you hear me? Answer me! I heard it! We've landed!" Carol answered as she took off her helmet and climbed out of the wreckage of the plane. She had to rescue the doctor who was sitting in the back. "Need any help?" Mu-En's voice sounded behind her, which made Carol, who was rescuing, stunned for a moment. After seeing Mu-En, Carol nodded hurriedly. "Hurry, help me rescue the doctor." Since the other party did not refuse, Mu-En walked up and regarded it as a reward for borrowing the communicator. There was blood on the doctor's face, but her blood was not red, but a dark blue. What type of mutant is this? Mu-En thought to himself and felt extremely strange. It was the first time he saw a blue-blooded mutant. "Doctor, why is your blood blue?" Carol asked the question that was on Moon's mind. The doctor leaned back in his chair, breathing more in than out, and looked at Carol and said, "Yeah, my hair isn't messy, is it?" These words left Mu-En speechless. Could it be that this so-called doctor had fallen and become stupid? "Can you carry me out?" The doctor spoke again, and Moon and Carol hurriedly carried her out of the wreckage. And the moment he touched the wreckage of the plane, Mu-En felt a powerful force from the wreckage. If he could extract the power from the wreckage of the plane, perhaps he could get enough essence to create a second suit of armor. With Moon's help, the doctor quickly got out of the wreckage and spoke with difficulty breathing. "Carol, do you remember why we are working here? What is it for?" "To stop the war." Carol gave the answer. "Yes, the scale of this war is bigger than you think." The doctor coughed and said, "Ahem. My name is not Lawson, my real name is Mavely, and I come from a planet called Hala." The content of their conversation caught Moon's attention. He pondered over the conversation between the two, especially the words of the doctor. Carol, blue blood, aliens from another planet. Memories before the time travel emerged in his mind. Have I arrived in the Avengers world? The only world in his mind that can associate these nouns is Captain Marvel in the Avengers world. "Excuse me, do you know a guy named Tony Stark?" Tony Stark's future Iron Man. If this is the Avengers world, then they should know the super genius of the Stark family. Hearing Moon's inquiry, Dr. Marvel smiled. "You mean the genius kid from Howard's family? It seems that this is the Avengers world." This made Mu-En a little confused for a moment. He just wanted to return to Earth, but he didn't expect that he had taken the wrong path and came to a completely different world. "Now I have to go back to my old ways." Now that he knew where this place was, Mu-En could only accept it calmly and prepare to return to his old job as a mercenary. With a muffled sound, Marwell, who was about to detonate the plane engine, was pierced through the chest by a green beam of light. This fatal attack killed Mavely instantly and also brought Mu-En back to his senses. "Is there an enemy?" Carol immediately picked up the gun from Dr. Marvel and aimed at the billowing smoke in the distance, while Moon circulated energy in his hands and stared at the place where the smoke was rolling. A guy in green combat uniform walked out of the thick smoke. He looked at Mu-En and the other man and said, "I'm not interested in you. Where is the energy core?" This guy looked arrogant and didn't take Mu-En and the others seriously at all. His target was only the energy core designed by Dr. Marvel. "Excuse me, I'm very interested in you." Void energy flowed in Mu-En's eyes, and he could see clearly that the guy in front of him also had items containing powerful power. In Carol's surprised eyes, Moon disappeared from her side in an instant and turned into a ray of light and rushed towards the guy who killed Dr. Marvel. Looking at Mu-En rushing towards him, Rog fired several shots. Green beams of light hit the light that Mu-En turned into, but did not cause any ripples. The moment the light hit him, Mu-En appeared and kicked the guy. Unlike the battles he had experienced in the past, the guy in front of him had a faint green light coming out of his arms, blocking his attack. "You are seeking death on your own." Rogue roared, and the green energy on his arm attacked Moon. Facing the opponent's attack, Mu-En did not hesitate. The void energy surrounded his body and instantly turned into the void remnant of the armor. "Deny." As Mu-En's voice fell, the fragments on his arm and shoulder floated up and turned into a void energy that surrounded his body, and the energy on his arm also appeared. Void energy gushed out from the energy vessels, condensing into a beam of light that penetrated the opponent's attack and attacked the opponent. Snort! The light beam pierced Rogue's shoulder, and the seemingly powerful combat suit did not help him block the attack of the light beam. After the attack, Mu-En suddenly bent his legs and spun in the air like a bullet, rushing towards the opponent. Thump! With a dull thud, Rogue was stepped heavily upon by Mu-En. Take off your gear. His equipment contained great power and could be used to extract the essence of I, which was a key item in shaping armor. It was impossible for him not to be tempted. As for the energy core behind him, it doesn't have legs, so of course we have to get this guy's equipment first. Chapter 27, The First Battle of Armor. Unfortunately, as the team commander, Rogue was not easily succumbed to some trauma. He grabbed the broken leg of the Void Rumble, and the energy in his arms surged wildly. Green energy burst out instantly, repelling Mu-En who was stepping on him. Let's take care of this guy together. As soon as he finished speaking, several green beams shot out from the smoke and headed straight towards Mu-En. At the same time, a guy holding a long knife rushed out, waving the long knife emitting green light in his hand and slashing towards Mu-En. Gaze! Along with a heart-wrenching wail, a large number of void tendrils composed of void energy appeared on the body of the guy wielding the long sword. The void tendrils tightly wrapped around his body, making him unable to move. As the void tendrils continued to wrap around him, this guy was surrounded by void energy clouds and stood there motionless like a sculpture. Let me use this knife. He took the long knife from the sculpture, and the fragments on his right shoulder and arm became suspended, and void energy flowed out of his void veins, turning into energy clouds surrounding him. Secret words of truth. The long sword was infused with void energy, and the light it emitted changed from green to light blue. Mu-En, holding a long sword, rushed towards Rogue again. Some of the flying beams of light passed by him, while others were blocked by his long sword. The long sword kept swinging, attacking Rogue from all directions like a rainstorm. Faced with this attack that was like a rainstorm, Rogue was very troubled. The opponent's fighting level was not weaker than his. Even after he used the power of his equipment, he could not hurt the opponent. He even had to be careful to guard against the opponent's attacks. Once he was careless, he would be injured again or even die. Feeling the pain from his shoulder, Rogue could only devote himself to the battle. He knew very well that if he made a mistake, Mu-En's long sword would definitely cut off his neck without hesitation. During the continuous attacks, Mu-En also tried to seal this guy with his gaze. But this guy's equipment was not weak. Facing the void tendrils released by him, Rogue broke free by bursting out the power of his equipment. Of course, Rogue was not simply defending. Although his equipment had little effect on Moon, it was still very effective against other things. Green energy flew out from his arms, and the wreckage of the plane gradually floated up and shot out from behind Mu-En. Clang! Laugh! Mu-En jumped up and slashed behind him with the long knife in his hand. He blocked the flying debris with his long sword, and some were even cut off by him directly. After dealing with the wreckage, Mu-En stepped lightly in the air, and a blue energy appeared under his feet, allowing him to leap into the air again and avoid the green beams that were flying towards him. Disgusting attack! This beam attack posed almost no threat to him, but he was very annoyed that he had to keep dodging it. Grasp of the void. The fragments on Void Rumble's chest and thighs floated up quietly, and a void rift appeared beside him. Countless void tendrils emerged from it and attacked the guys who kept shooting. Faced with the oncoming void tendrils, those guys retreated one after another. They didn't want to be entangled by the tendrils and turned into a sculpture. But the tendrils were not targeting them, but the weapons in their hands. The people who were retreating were caught off guard and their weapons were snatched away by the tendrils. They watched as the weapons in their hands gathered around Mu-En. 6 weapons wrapped in void energy surrounded Mu-En, constantly adjusting the direction of the muzzles. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 6 weapons launched an attack, and beams of void energy spewed out from the muzzles and attacked these guys. Faced with the attack of the void energy beam, these guys dodged one after another, fearing that they would be pierced through the body by the void energy beam. Without the interruption of those guys, Mu-En turned to look at Rogue. He wanted to take all the equipment on this guy. The long knife slashed towards Rogue again, and the sharp long knife kept cutting out at an increasing speed. Falcon Sneak Attack. This is the name of the move used by Mu-En, which is a move in the sword stance Falcon Dive. The long sword slashed at all kinds of tricky angles, and his feet kept rushing forward, slashing at all kinds of fatal places. While Moon and Rog were fighting, Rog's men all took action. Although they couldn't do anything to Moon, weren't there other people here? The pilot was a good target. They used the billowing smoke to circle around Moon and rush towards the wreckage of the plane. They didn't care who Moon, who transformed into the echo of the void, was, but this woman was flying the same plane as Mavely, and she must know where the energy core designed by Mavely was. Carol, who was originally shocked by Moon's transformation, became alert again after hearing the noises around him, raising his pistol to monitor the situation around him. Stop! The rescue team will be here soon. If you don't leave, you will be surrounded. Carol shouted at the guy who stuck his head out. She did it on purpose. On the one hand, she wanted to intimidate the other party, and on the other hand, she wanted to remind Muen. After all, compared to these guys who killed Dr. Marvel as soon as they showed up, although Moon became very weird, at least she didn't have any malice towards her. Hearing Carol shout, Moon swung the long knife in his hand fiercely. The long knife wrapped in void energy pressed tightly on Rog's arms, forcing Rog to kneel on the ground. It seems your team members didn't think of saving you. He kicked Rog, and the fragments on his arm floated deny. A void beam shot out from the fingertips and shot towards Rog's head. The moment he saw the fragments on Moon's arm floating up, Rog gave up resistance and fell to the ground as the long sword chopped down. The void beam grazed his scalp and shot at the guys who rushed towards Carol. That's pretty decisive. Seeing that this guy chose to get injured to avoid the attack of the void beam, Muen exclaimed in admiration. This was a smart choice. Compared to death, being injured was always acceptable. However, just because he avoided the void beam, it didn't mean that his teammates could avoid it. The void beam shot through a blue-skinned guy. The green combat suit he was wearing did not help him to block the damage and went straight through his chest. As the guy screamed, Carol pulled the trigger and fired bullets at the team members. But what she didn't expect was that the green energy on Rogue's arm was actually a standard feature of these guys' combat uniforms. One of the team members surrounded his arms with green energy and stood in front of him to form a green shield, blocking all the bullets shot by Carol. Damn it! Bullets are of no threat to these guys, so there is only one way left. Carol turned the gun and fired at the plane engine. Compared to the green energy of those guys, the plane engine was much easier to destroy. The bullet directly detonated the engine, and blue energy burst out from it. Moon, who was about to kill Rogue, was blown away by the explosion. As he flew away, he saw Carol who was submerged in blue energy. Fuck, this woman is wasting resources. Chapter 28, Cree Memories. The violent explosion of the engine caused Muen to fly directly into the lake. After he stuck his head out of the lake, he found that those guys were running away without even looking back. One of the Cree was even carrying a guy whose body was covered in strange energy. That was Carol, who was hit by the energy generated by the engine explosion. You blew up the engine, and you still want to escape. A blue light shot up into the sky from the lake. Muen broke away from the resonant sound in the void and turned into a ray of light, rushing towards those guys. After seeing the blue light coming towards them, Rog and the others increased their speed again and rushed into their spaceship. They had had enough of this troublesome guy, and now that they had captured the pilot who knew the location of the energy core, all they had to do was board the spaceship and leave. As Muen got closer, those guys also boarded the spaceship. The moment the spaceship's engine started, Muen knew that he couldn't stop these guys from leaving, but he still wanted to try, even if it meant leaving one more person behind. Void energy surrounded his body, and the next moment it turned into void remnant, and at the moment of transformation, a destructive void energy spread out from his body. The death and corruption in the void energy began to spread wildly as the fragments of his body disintegrated, and he himself turned into a skeleton with void blood vessels wrapped around his body. Super-dimensional purgatory. The terrifying void energy attacked the spaceship and instantly covered half of it. Although the attack of the super-dimensional purgatory was powerful, the target was a spaceship after all. The current power of the armor was not enough to destroy the spaceship. Only part of the spaceship's wings were damaged. Deny. The void beam shot out from his hand again and hit the spaceship's engine. The engine exploded the moment it was hit, and the spaceship's wing was directly blown off. But the spaceship did not fall as he expected. Instead, it flew crookedly towards the sky with billowing smoke. Fuck. If I meet you again, I will definitely tear your heads off. Looking at the flying spaceship, Muen cursed angrily. These guys escaped from his hands, and the plane engine that he was originally planning to use to extract ice essence was also blown up by Carol. This was a huge loss for Mun. Turning around and looking at the guy who was controlled by his gaze, those people thought that this guy was killed, so they didn't take him away when they retreated. Fortunately, at least we still have 2 sets of equipment. Walking towards the sculpture, the remnant sound in the void turned into energy and gradually disappeared, and Mun also came in front of the sculpture. Let me see what you know first. He put his hand on the guy's head, and the next moment Mun's body disappeared in a flash of light. Using the ability of soul transfer, he entered his memory and was very interested in the hometown of these Cree people. As the mist dissipated, all the memories of this Cree man from birth to the present appeared in front of Mun like bubbles. It turns out that Hara is the home planet of the Cree. I thought the Cree's planet was called Cree. The planet Hala in memory had powerful technology that surpassed that of the Earth. The Cree even established their empire in the universe. This guy was called Chero, and he was a member of an elite team that specialized in covert operations. Through memory, Mun quickly mastered the writing and language of the Cree people, and even fully understood how to use the equipment. It turns out that this equipment has a space translator. I was wondering how it could communicate without any obstacles. He thought these aliens all spoke English, but it turned out to be thanks to the cosmic translator, which could convert the language of any creature into a language they were familiar with, allowing them to communicate without obstacles. After searching for a long time in his memory, Mun got a lot of memories about the Cree technology. Only after he determined the coordinates of Harry Star did Mun break away from Chero's body. Rog, hey? Wash your neck and wait for me. After saying that, the void energy in his hand gushed out, and Shaluo gradually turned into ashes in the void energy. After putting on Chero's equipment, Mun turned and walked to the guy who was shot by his void beam and wiped out this guy as well. I wonder how much essence this equipment can extract. Picking up these equipment, Mun felt the energy in them and guessed how much essence could be extracted from them. Thinking of this, Mun looked towards the place where the engine exploded, and a faint sadness arose in his heart. What a spendthrift woman, she actually set off such a good thing. Then, Mun thought about the information he got from Shaluo's memory. By the way, the Cree are really a treasure. If I hadn't seen it from that guy's memory, I would have almost forgotten that there is a super artificial intelligence there. The head of the Cree Empire is not just any person. Instead, it is a super artificial intelligence created by integrating all the Cree technology, or a life computer called the Supreme Intelligence. This thing is very useful. If there is a chance, he wouldn't mind going to the planet Hala to recast the Supreme Wisdom into an intelligence center. Shortly after Rog and others escaped on the spaceship, the roar of a car engine was heard from a distance. After hearing the sound, Mun instantly entered the void mode and disappeared from the spot. Hurry up! Collect all the debris here. A fat man who looked like a supervisor jumped out of the car and shouted loudly to the vehicles behind him. Many rescue team members also got out of the cars next to him. Carol! Carol! Where are you? A black woman was shouting around, looking for Carol, who she had been able to contact before. No need to look for him. A grey-haired man looked at the traces of the explosion and said, "The pilot must have been killed." Pointing at the traces of the explosion, the man continued. The plane engine exploded. The girl named Carol should have been killed by the exploding engine along with Dr. Lawson. Hearing this, the woman looked at the explosion area in disbelief. They were clearly in contact before, so how could they be suddenly killed in the explosion? Counselor Stark, look at this. The supervisor shouted at the man. Next to him was a piece of the spaceship wing that was blown off by Mun. Old Stark walked over and was very interested in the wing. Mun, who was standing by, also heard these words. He looked at the white-haired old man with curiosity. Could this old man be Howard Stark? Mun followed behind him and looked at him carefully. That's right. According to his age, Howard Stark should be in his 60s or 70s now. Although he didn't know what time it was, he recognized the eagle logo on these guys. It was the logo of SHIELD. He had watched a lot of superhero movies before traveling through time. Since he is a member of SHIELD, and this old man is called Consultant Stark, he can only be Howard Stark. After all, the future Iron Man Tony Stark does not have a good impression of SHIELD. Chapter 29. Cooperation. The wreckage of the spacecraft's wing was secretly transported to the Stark Industrial Park, and Mun took the opportunity to drive to this world-famous place in the future. Is this Stark Industries? Looking at the huge industrial park, Mun nodded slowly. I think Howard won't mind the deal. Originally he was planning to go back to his old job, but after he met Howard, an idea came to his mind. He planned to trade Kree technology with Howard, believing that the elderly super scientist would like the technology. Following Howard to the laboratory, there were precision instruments everywhere, and in the center of the laboratory, there was a huge piece of wreckage. No. After seeing the inspection data of the wreckage, Howard shook his head. This is not the wreckage of a fighter plane. Project Pegasus was initiated by SHIELD, and as one of the members who promoted Project Pegasus, Howard knew many secrets that even SHIELD itself did not know. Of course this isn't the wreckage of a fighter plane. Moon revealed himself while sitting on the research table. This is part of the wreckage of a spaceship. Howard was startled by the sudden appearance of Moon N. He looked at the guy in combat uniform in front of him and seemed very alert. Oh. Moon N waved his hands and smiled. Relax, I'm not a bad person. A good person wouldn't show up in my lab in costume without saying hello. Howard could see that Moon had no ill will towards him, so he asked, Who are you? Why are you here? And how do you know this is the wreckage of a spaceship? Well, this is not a question you can ask at your age. Moon N jumped off the research table and pointed at himself and said, Let me introduce myself. My name is Moon N, and I used to be a mercenary. As for why I am here, it is because I want to make a deal with you. Transaction? Is this guy who calls himself a mercenary here to trade with him? Howard put down what he was holding and looked at Moon N. He wanted to know what Moon N was going to trade with him. Let's talk about this wreckage first. I shot it down. I originally wanted to blow up the spaceship, but I overestimated my attack. Moon exaggerated the previous experience and turned it into another version, telling Howard that it was Carol who blew up the plane engine, and that he used the aliens' equipment to blow up the engine of the spaceship that captured Carol, blowing off one side of the spaceship's wing. Listening to Moon N's statement that sounded like a fairy tale, Howard looked at Moon N as if he were an idiot. Do you think I will believe it? Well, if someone told me that, I wouldn't believe it. Moon N shrugged and said with a smile, but I think you will believe it. After saying that, he handed the space translator on another combat suit to the other party. This is the Kree's cosmic translator. By the way, Dr. Lawson is also an alien. Her real name is Marvell. Now, Howard was stunned. He knew many secrets, and Dr. Lawson's real name was one of them. After taking the cosmic translator, Howard had already accepted Moon N's words in his heart. Perhaps what Moon N said was true. After carefully examining the cosmic translator, Howard was attracted by the sophisticated device inside. He found the green crystal that served as the core of the translation, which made him more certain of the authenticity of Moon's words. This is not Earth technology. It cannot be achieved in at least 50 years. So, you believe it? Moon N smiled as he sat at the research table. Although it's a little unbelievable, I've seen more powerful things before. What you said is barely acceptable. Howard stopped his work and looked at Moon N. Next, can you tell me about your so-called deal? Of course. Moon N raised his eyebrows and smiled. The deal I made with you is related to these Kree people. I got some of the Kree technology. I wonder if you are interested. Kree technology, this did arouse Howard's interest. He had many inventions, but they were limited by the development of the times and could not be manufactured. Maybe these Kree technologies could help him improve his own technology. As for how Moon mastered the Kree technology, it was their secret and he didn't need to worry about it. What would you like? A legal identity, a farm, and a lot of money. Legal status and money are easy to talk about, but why do you want a farm? Howard looked at Moon with a strange expression. He didn't understand why this mercenary wanted to be a farmer. Is it not okay that I like the farm? Moon N asked as a matter of course. Yes. This is absolutely great. In this way, he can visit Moon N at any time and trade more technology with Moon N. As for other people, it is normal. Especially since he has such a wide range of interests, it is normal for him to suddenly like living in the countryside. Okay, I hope we can have a pleasant cooperation. Howard smiled and stretched out his hand to shake hands with Moon. The cooperation between the two was very secretive, and even at the beginning of their cooperation, he appeared as Howard's personal bodyguard. Of course, Moon N had no objection to Howard's way of handling the matter. He had nothing to do anyway, and Howard paid him extra money to hire him, so he agreed to it. However, for many people, Moon N's sudden appearance caught their attention. It looks like there are a lot of people interested in me. Moon, who was driving, smiled, while Howard, who was planning to go home, sat in the passenger seat. I'm a super rich man, and everyone is concerned about my situation, especially since there's a mysterious bodyguard next to me. Howard was extremely satisfied with Moon's professionalism. In just a few days, Moon helped him find a lot of commercial spies in the company. Yes, as a world-famous company, Stark Industries attracts a lot of attention, including some ambitious people who will do anything to obtain Stark Industries technology. Unfortunately, their commercial spies met the battle-hardened Mu-En. These guys' actions might be very natural, but they gave Mu-En a weird feeling. He originally thought that these guys were here to investigate him, but unexpectedly they uncovered a bunch of commercial spies who stole Stark Industries' inventions. Speaking of which, Tony seems to be very interested in you. He has been asking Maria about you when he comes home these days. So this is the real reason why you want me to take you home? Mu-En asked with a raised eyebrow. At this time, Tony Stark was still studying abroad in various parts of the world. Well, it would be better to say that he was picking up girls all over the world rather than studying abroad. The Playboy image has already been revealed, just like Howard when he was young. Yes, I plan to let you and Tony get to know each other. Maybe you will have something in common. Forget it. Your genius personality is well known to everyone. If I talk to him, I'm afraid I'll beat him up and make him cry. Chapter 30. Young Tony. Try my new invention, asshole. Young Tony Stark suddenly jumped out from the corner, rushing towards Moon with a pair of metal gloves on his hands. When he first met Mu-En, he didn't see anything special about Mu-En. He was just an ordinary person, not as powerful as the rumors said. But after he inadvertently spoke foul language, he personally experienced how powerful Mu-En was and was caught and severely beaten by Mu-En. Bang! Bang! Just when Tony was about to touch Mu-En, he was suddenly kicked away by Mu-En and then stepped on. Mu-En put his hands in his pockets, bent down and looked at Tony lying on the ground, and smiled. Mr. Homeless Man, I don't have any homosexual tendencies. If you really can't help it, you can go find a bar with colorful flags hanging outside. I believe those dancing men will be happy to help you solve your problems. Hearing this, Tony struggled to get up, still shouting. Get lost. I don't have any homosexual tendencies, you can enjoy those male dancers on your own. Now, take your feet off me right now. Tony was very unhappy. He didn't believe that he couldn't beat Mu-En once. It's now. The moment he felt the foot on his back being removed, Tony turned around and grabbed Moon's legs. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. As long as he could touch Moon, he would win. Several arcs of electricity shot out from the metal gloves on his hands. This guy has already driven his invention to the maximum. Ha 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 ha, I won, asshole. The moment he grabbed Moon, Tony laughed out loud. The electric current on his gloves was enough to paralyze an adult's whole body. As he was laughing, he suddenly realized something was wrong. Mu-En's legs did not seem to twitch due to the electricity in his gloves. Haha, Mr. Tramp, what are you laughing at? Can you tell me so I can laugh too? Mu-En's voice sounded above his head, and the legs that he was holding tightly in his hands were pulled out. To Moon, the young Tony Stark was not even his opponent. The reason why this guy kept causing trouble for him was, on the one hand, to prove himself, and on the other hand, because he wanted to defeat Moon in return for Moon beating him up. Seeing that Moon had no reaction to his invention, Tony sat on the ground and looked at his hands in confusion. Is there something wrong with the electric shock gloves? He touched his arm, and with a crackling sound, Tony fell directly to the ground, his body twitching continuously. Ha 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 ha. Mu-En laughed and looked at Howard, who was walking out of the room. Your genius's brain circuits are really different. It was the first time for him to see someone playing a prank on himself and even use himself to test the power of electric shock gloves. Howard seemed helpless as he watched his son lying on the ground with his body twitching. Although Tony was smart, he still had the common problem of young people and was always a little irritable. The same is true in experiments. Every time a new invention is made, it will be experimented with as soon as possible, and most experiments will leave oneself covered in injuries. Jarvis, send Tony back to the bedroom to rest. Howard looked at Mu-En and said, I only have this one son, can't you give me some face? Even though he knew that Mu-En was just playing with Tony, he couldn't help but complain to Mu-En when he saw that Tony was always being teased. No, that won't do. This is the only fun I can have. Besides, doesn't your genius also enjoy it? Moon's answer left Howard speechless. Whose child likes to be beaten every day? It had only been a week since they met, and Tony had been caught and beaten by Moon more than a dozen times. If he hadn't known that it was Tony's own fault, he and Maria would have fought to the death with Moon. However, the couple also understood that Moon's appearance inspired Tony's fighting spirit. He was competing with Moon every day. It was no longer like in the past, when he would only quarrel with Howard and hold pajama parties at home. Watching Tony, whose whole body was still twitching, being sent back to the room by Jarvis, Howard handed a document to Moon. This is what you want? The document contained Mu-N's legal identity and proof of a farm asset belonging to Mu-N. That's right. Howard pointed to the farm's asset certificate and said, I bought 2 farms. This one is yours, and the farm next to it is mine. Maria and I plan to live in the country for a while. As soon as he said this, Mu-N immediately understood what he meant. In order to obtain more Cree technology, this guy was willing to become a farmer like Mu-N. But Mu-N didn't care, and even agreed with Howard's decision. Although he only wanted to be a farmer, he still wanted armor and equipment. If he had Howard as his neighbor, he could go directly to Howard and use his various instruments to make equipment. You don't need to report to me what you do, but what will happen to Stark Industries if you leave? Aren't you afraid that your genius will destroy it? Although Tony is a little childish, he is not as bad as you said. Howard thought for a moment and said, it is time for him to take over Stark Industries. Besides, he has Obede to help him. As the two chatted, they started talking about Tony and then about the culture of the Cree people. In Howard's hand, there was a new document, all written in Cree language like a circuit board. This was the document he got from S.H.I.E.L.D., and it was the only one among Dr. Lawson's files that was written in Cree. Everyone thought that this was a circuit diagram drawn by Dr. Lawson and was the core design of the Lightspeed engine. However, after the crash, no one studied these things anymore and Dr. Lawson's information was sealed up. As a consultant, Howard understood the true content of the document after receiving the Cree text from Moon. That is indeed related to the Lightspeed engine. This document records some of Lawson's or Dr. Marvel's design concepts for the Lightspeed engine. You want the technology in this area. Looking at the content of the document, Mu-N thought for a while, there is similar information, but the Lightspeed engine was designed independently by Dr. Marvel. The Cree people have not yet mastered this technology. They only have some energy technology. The Cree's energy technology is pretty good. If it weren't for the expansion of the Cree Empire, they wouldn't have to seize the Lightspeed engine. After comparing the Cree's energy technology, Moon took out a hard drive containing the Cree's most advanced energy technology. This is the Cree's controlled nuclear fusion technology, and it is also the stage that Earth's current technology can reach. Howard was overjoyed when he saw the hard drive that Moon-N took out. He had been studying controlled nuclear fusion for a long time, but due to the limitations of social and technological development, he was unable to achieve his goal. And now the technology provided by Mu-N might be able to help him to completely perfect the technology of controlled nuclear fusion. You came at the right time. Howard said, these technologies are hard to measure with money. I won't give you money. How about 5% of Stark Industries shares? 5% of Stark Industries shares is much more than a sum of money, so Moon certainly would not refuse.